Smita,
Yeah.
do you
Yes.
hear any vague background noise from my side?
Oh no.
Nothing, no?
No. Sir, can you stop live streaming now? We can begin at 9:30.
We are just checking it now.
Yeah,
5
yeah.
minutes.
Okay. Yeah.
Smita ma'am, in 2 minutes she will be joining.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Just stop live streaming now.
Pardon me, ma'am. Can you be a little louder?
Sharmila ma'am.
Sir.
Ma'am, I'll take over. I'll just start it when it. You can just leave it as it is.
Yeah, okay, sir.
Megha ma'am has joined. Megha Garuda. You can make her host. Co-host.
Yes, ma'am. We'll make it.
Nandan sir, Dinesh sir has joined. You can make him host.
A warm welcome and a very good morning to all the participants. A quick glance on the instructions for today. Audio and video are muted. Kindly do not unmute the same. Participants need to be present for all the sessions of the conference. Participants can post their queries, if any, in the chat box. A feedback form will be shared at the end of each session in the chat box, which has to be filled in for all the sessions. Kindly note, participants will receive the e-certificate within 15 days of the conference. We will start the conference sharp at 9:30 a.m. Kindly stay logged in. Thank you. A very good morning and a hearty welcome to all the esteemed delegate participants of the virtual 5th International Conference on Emerging Global Trends in Accounting, Finance and Taxation. Myself, Dr. Shilpa Sampath Kumar, take immense pleasure in inviting this august gathering. Now, I request Ms. Ramya Manjunath, to sing the prayer and invoke the blessings of Almighty.
Yes, ma'am. मूषिकवाहना मोदकहस्ता चामरकर्णा विलम्बितसूत्रा वामनरूपा महेश्वरपुत्रा विघ्नविनाशकपाला नमस्ते 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 नमः ಶರಣು ಶರಣಯ್ಯ ಶರಣು ಬೆನಕ ನೀಡಯ್ಯ ಬಾಳೆಲ್ಲ ಬೆಳಗುವ ಬೆಳಕ ಶರಣು ಶರಣಯ್ಯ ಶರಣು ಬೆನಕ ನೀಡಯ್ಯ ಬಾಳೆಲ್ಲ ಬೆಳಗುವ ಬೆಳಕ ನಿನ್ನ ನಂಬಿದ ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ಈ ಹೃದಯ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸುಖ ತಂದೆ ಕಾಯೋ ನಮ್ಮ ಕರಿಮುಖ ಶರಣು ಶರಣಯ್ಯ ಶರಣು ಬೆನಕ ನೀಡಯ್ಯ ಬಾಳೆಲ್ಲ ಬೆಳಗುವ ಬೆಳಕ ಎಲ್ಲಾರು ಒಂದಾಗಿ ನಿನ್ನ ನಮಿಸಿ ನಲಿಯೋದು ನೋಡೋಕೆ ಚೆನ್ನ ಎಲ್ಲಾರು ಒಂದಾಗಿ ನಿನ್ನ ನಮಿಸಿ ನಲಿಯೋದು ನೋಡೋಕೆ ಚೆನ್ನ ಗರಿಕೆ ತಂದರೆ ನೀನು ಕೊಡುವೆ ವರವನ್ನ ಗತಿ ನೀನೆ ಗಣಪನೆ ಕೈ ಹಿಡಿಯೋ ಮುನ್ನ ಶರಣು ಶರಣಯ್ಯ ಶರಣು ಬೆನಕ ನೀಡಯ್ಯ ಬಾಳೆಲ್ಲ ಬೆಳಗುವ ಬೆಳಕ ನೀಡಯ್ಯ ಬಾಳೆಲ್ಲ ಬೆಳಗುವ ಬೆಳಕ ನೀಡಯ್ಯ ಬಾಳೆಲ್ಲ ಬೆಳಗುವ ಬೆಳಕ ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.
Thank you, Ms. Ramya, for the devotional prayer. We welcome Mr. Gaurav Kapoor, Head of Policy, ACCA, India. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on, the objective of this conference is to gather like-minded individuals from across the country and globe to learn, discuss thoughts, network, share ideas, create new ideas, and to understand the dynamics of global accounting, finance, and taxation. Conferences are a great way to be inspired by fresh ideas, to start rethinking the status quo, and to hopefully leave ready to tackle educational and business challenges in creative and innovative ways. As rightly said by Malcolm, education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. Unquote. A hearty welcome to all the participants on this educational voyage. Now, I request Ms. Megha Gurud, Assistant Professor, School of Commerce, Jain Deemed to be University, to introduce our Director, Dr. Dinesh Nilkant. Over to you, Ms. Megha.
Dr. Dinesh Nilkant. Sir is currently with Jain Deemed to be University as Director, School of Commerce, Director, CMS Business School, Dean of Management, and Director, Admissions. Sir's mantle of responsibility includes strategic planning, vision, risk-taking ability, leadership, continuous communication, learning from experience, managing across and up, collaborations, and sharing experiences. A career spanning 3 decades in the education sector with core specialization in marketing management, Sir has contributed to some of the best practices at Jain Deemed to be University. A visionary who has created and shaped Jain Deemed to be University Center for Management Studies as one of India's top 5 undergraduate B school in the country. That was recently accredited with a National Accreditation and Assessment Council Grade A. Sir is behind organizing many workshops at national and international levels for both students and faculty members. Sir, we are honored to have you. Wish you, requesting you to deliver the welcome address.
Okay, thank you, Megha. Thank you very much. My pranams to all of you. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. So first of all, good morning to one and all. And on behalf of Jain University School of Commerce, I welcome all of you for this conference on redefining accounting, finance, and taxation. First of all, let me appreciate the efforts of the entire Samshodhana team for putting such a wonderful show. Yesterday, you conducted a conference on redefining HR and marketing, and today you are dealing with accounting, finance, and taxation. So, a wonderful effort and a lot of work has gone in. So, a round of applause to all of you. Coming back to the next part is that redefining accounting, finance, and taxation. So before that, and one more thing, sorry to say this, but I forgot about it. Mr. Gaurav Kapoor, in spite of your busy schedule, you are here. So thank you very much, and my pranams to you. Thank you very much. Okay, now coming back to accounting, finance, and taxation, the first thing which is coming to my mind before all this is the money and how to generate it. Because if you generate money, then you account for it. After accounting, then there is a financial planning for it. And then comes the taxation part. So in this conference, I am very much eager to know that if somebody is going to write and tell us or a research paper on how we can take our business from one level to another level by generating more money. Because when the vitamin M is there, then only accounting, finance, and taxation comes. I hope all of you agree to this, because if money is not generated, how are we going to account for something? This COVID has taught us so many things, and there comes the time of redefining all the businesses, all the aspects which are connected to businesses. And there comes a thought that what should we do? So redefining becomes the major and essential part. And at that point of time, I think today we will be learning from all the participants and all the research scholars that how this can be done. I know that the aspect of accounting has changed, the aspect of finances have changed, the aspects of taxation have changed. A lot of minute things have entered into the market, and professionals are literally scratching their heads to understand that how things can be moved forward. And in this aspect, it is very much important from the educational, institutional point of view that we have to teach this to all the students, because tomorrow they are going to be the professionals. So it will be really a nice thing to listen to all of you and learn from you and deliver to the student. My best of luck to all the participants. Thanks for participating in Jain, and hope to learn from you a lot. So thank you very much, and over to the MC. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dinesh sir. We take this opportunity to thank you for all your support, and also thank you for your insightful words, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now I request Ms. Megha to introduce the speaker of our keynote address, Mr. Gaurav Kapoor, Head of Policy, ACCA, India.
Mr. Gaurav Kapoor is the head of policy at ACCA. His current role builds on over 15 years of his experience in knowledge-based intervention and public policy through thought leadership. Prior to joining ACCA, Gaurav was at Yes Global Institute, a think tank at Yes Bank focused on fintech intervention, policy development, innovation, digital economy, and sustainability. His experience spans across industries and verticals, which include investment management, corporate strategy, commercial and planning, and treasury operations with organizations like BOI, AXA Investment Managers, Aditya Birla Nuvo, Hindustan Unilever, Hindalco, and Birla Sun Life Asset Management. Gaurav has been exceptional in academics and has been recognized at various levels for his achievements and intellect. He is a qualified accountant and an MBA from Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, IIFT, where he was awarded with the prestigious Ratan Tata Scholarship for Academic Excellence. He was also awarded full scholarship to study at the School of Public Policy at George Mason University, USA. Apart from this, he is also a qualified chartered financial analyst, CFA, and has been awarded a certificate for undertaking leadership programs at the prestigious Harvard University. A very hearty welcome to Mr. Gaurav. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Megha. Thank you for the kind introduction. So let me start by thanking Dr. Dinesh for such a spectacular, introduction. And I think he set the entire context very clearly. And I like, and I like when he said you need to take care about the vitamin M, and a deficiency in vitamin M would obviously impact not only the organization but also question what you are doing. So it's very essential for young generation, the generation Z who's watching it right now, to understand that the world has changed. It's not that it is changing, it has changed already, right? And you need to redefine yourself, and you need to redefine the way you do things. And if you do not do it right now, then you would probably be left behind. And as Megha said in the start, the future belongs to those who prepare for it today, right? And it is really, really essential that you prepare for it today. So my objective of this presentation today is to just give you a glimpse of how this world has changed. What does it mean for you if the world has changed? And then what is it that you can do for yourself? What does the future look like? What kind of future roles am I going to be undertaking? So that has changed drastically. So let me take you through a small presentation, and I'll try to share my screen. Hold on, just give me a second. Okay, hold on. Just share my screen. Let me know if you're able to see my screen. Can you see my screen? If anyone can say so.
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So as I said, the world has already changed, and the future of finance is something now very, very different of what we know of. We knew it was changing, but there are certain trends which have come very, very strongly, with a very strong point. Now let's look at it. So this was a research which we had done some time back, right? Just before COVID hit, right? And we asked people around what is changing, what is emerging out there, what has changed. So these are a couple of quotes which I picked up because I like these quotes. So that's why I've just picked up these quotes. So when we ask people, a common line which came from people was that the need for the accountant, right, a finance and accountant person, to understand the digital impact is far higher today than it was 20 years ago, and I think everyone can agree to the fact. The impact of digital is so much. Look at how we are interacting. Ideally, we would have had this international conference in physical. I would have been there physically present in your auditorium and probably addressing to all of you. But now things have changed. You've gone in a digital mode, and so have organizations. Now, if organizations have changed, finance people who are driving that organization should also change. So the need for them to understand the digital impact and change themselves and their way of working has drastically changed. The next one, which I really like, is whatever role you carry out. Now, this is interesting. Somebody may say that, I'm in some role which does not get impacted with the world has changed. How does it matter to me? But that no one can say that, right? So whatever role you carry out in the finance function, right, you can make a difference in the technological world. And the boundaries are falling. There are no longer that boundaries, and opportunities are abundant. So for you, young generation, and for people who are doing this research and papers, you need to realize that the barriers to entry, as we call, when we say there are entry barriers to anything, that has gone away. So those have fallen apart, and it is a time for you to make really, really most abundant use of this opportunity. I would say this as an opportunity for youngsters specifically, because things have moved in towards your direction out there. So I think that is very core, which came out of our research. And I wanted to highlight this part to you very, very essentially. Now let's look at the transformed world, right? The world has transformed. And as we say, we need to prepare for this transformation today if we want to be really relevant in tomorrow, right? So how is this world transformed? And in this world, as I said, digital transformation is at the heart of it. Now, everyone who was doing business earlier, whether it was in education, how you were interacting with your customers, how you're servicing those customers, how you were consigning your books of account, how you are closing your accounts, everything has gone digital. Nobody wants paper on the table now. It's more about digital. Can we have a digital trail? Can we have accountability? Can we have auditability of a transaction which is happening, right? 70% of and this is a research, there's 70% of organization, and this is pre-COVID. So this was in close to November 2019 or somewhere around there. 70% of organizations either have a digital strategy in place or are working on one. And when I say this was pre-COVID, if I was to look at the COVID time and post, and when we are in the recovery phase, as to say, now we're getting a second wave of it, but this percentage of 70% would have increased drastically, probably 90-95%, or even close to more than that also, because no organization can survive, it does not have a digital strategy. I'll give you an example. My fruit vendor, who used to go around in the colonies and everybody used to shout for it, now he's created a WhatsApp group. He said, I'm not allowed to enter unless I show that there is somebody who's willing to buy of it. And how do I show that? Because if I don't enter it, so your own WhatsApp group, I was just putting in, and he was able to take the orders and he was getting it delivered to me. I'm just telling you, to the most basic level, digital strategy has come into place. And I'm not even talking about how you're doing your transportation, to how you're navigating Google Maps and everything. No, it's every organization. They're saying, how do we connect to our customers right there, right? So a finance profession has to understand, why is it that I'm not implementing, let's say, robotic process automation in my work? Why am I just doing normal stuff? Why is there no ERP in this, right? So these are the questions. The organizations are having digital strategies. So as an individual, if I don't think digital, and I'm saying if I don't think digital, I would not be relevant out there. Very important, right? Now let's look at the next figure. 60% of companies that had undergone digital transformation have created new business model. So they are no longer with the old business model. Now there's a new business model. They said, earlier we were not, it was B2B kind of an operation. Now they're having B2C operation. They're saying, why can we not reach out to the customer directly? They can just order it online or our website, and we can use supply chain of other logistic companies to deliver product to them. So beautifully done. I'll give you an example. A lot of you must be using shopping platforms, right, which are out there, right, from Geomart to Amazon to Big Basket, Grofers, and everything. A lot of people who are selling on those platforms, right, would ideally not have been able to supply to you had it not been for that interface which is out there. So digital has created new business models for him. There is another one, how the sales over internet, or he's saying, I'm doing B2C sales also now. Can I reach out to customer without being very prohibitively expensive? Then the next part is also very interesting. Companies that gross over $1 billion can earn an additional $700 million over the 3 years from this investment. So what am I talking about? For you finance people, everybody knows about ROI, right? Return on investment. So if somebody asks me that, Gaurav, I am happy to do this digital strategy, I'm happy to create new business model, but is it going to be working? I think it is working, and it was working before also. It's a very high ROI. And now let's think of it in a very broader way. It's not only ROI, but it's also survival. If you want to survive, you have to be, reaching out to customers out there. Now let's look at this slide. Interesting one, right? Interesting one. Let's look at the forces of change. Whenever we study anything, a change happens, but it's because of the forces of change which make it happen, right? And why do you need a digital one? For me, you can say the force of you to take up an education is because your parents were forcing you to do something. And in my family, it can happen that my parents will say, you should study, you should do this and stuff like that. Forces of change always exist. So what are the forces of change for organizational perspective? What has it changed that we have gone towards the digital side? I agree, everybody will say COVID, but can we actually break it down to much more than COVID? What has happened out there? So let's look at a couple of things which have changed out there, which I thought could be of value for everyone. First is velocity. What do we mean by velocity? The force at which we are getting information every day is amazing. Everybody, communicating, you're getting calls every day, you're getting SMSs, number of SMSs, number of WhatsApp, number of emails, the force at which the information is coming to you. You need to understand that this information or data which is coming to you, you need to process it and make it into a pattern, a knowledge. So organizations are saying, we're collecting so much of data out there, it's coming with so much of force. Can we have a solution to understand that? Second, volume. I'm giving you an example. 10 years back, the number of emails I used to get in a day were hardly few. And 15 years back, probably in 2005, I used to every day open my email box and used to be happy if I could see 1 or 2 emails in my mailbox. And I used to feel so nice that, somebody has mailed me, whether it was a spam or not. I'm just telling you. But today, the number of mails you get in a day can be more than 100 out there, and that's normal. I get more than 100 mails. So how do you sort this kind of mail? I'm just giving you an example, right? Same thing, organization gets so much of volume of data. How is it that you can make the best use of that data? So volume, the volume of information which is flowing in for finance, accountant, professional, they have to make meaning of it. Then comes value. From a finance professional, let's say if he's getting a lot of volume of data of sales and everything, and he needs to understand what does it mean? Is there any trend in my sales? Is there any trend in my revenue? Is there any trend in my cost? How is it impacting? He has to make of it. So he needs a digital tool. And to use that digital tool, he has to be digitally savvy. He has to think ahead. He has to prepare himself for the same. Then variety, you need information, you need analysis, information, data in your phone, in your laptop, everywhere. You're not very satisfied with what is happening out there. And last and finally, veracity of data, in terms of knowing that, if the data which you're getting is really authentic, is accurate, is not somebody's guess out there. So that is very important to have these tools. And that's what is changing in organizations. And since we are defining, and Dr. Dinesh says about the currency, vitamin M. So it's important for organizations to realize their revenue, profitability, and the contributory role, right? So now the business model has changed. And if you look at it, this is the new transform operating model for businesses, because they want to earn that cash flow. I would say cash flow, which is very critically important. So what has changed? So the surrounding ones are something which has changed. First of all is a digital customer experience, right? Customers are no longer walking in and giving their opinions or how they felt like, or they're waiting for marketing agencies. There are ways where customers are, let's say, going on, let's say if you had some food, you want to talk about it was really bad or it was really good, and you order from Zomato or Swiggy. I'm just giving an example, right? So you will put in a review, right? Same thing, social media is so strong that you would go out and tell your experience, not only as an expression of your thought, but also as expression of your opinion of what other people should do from your opinion out there. So it's become a very strong tool. So organizations have to take care of the digital customer experience. From a finance perspective, it has an impact on business, because they know if an organization's approval of its product is going down, it will impact revenues, it will impact their profitability, and that will have an impact on overall well-being of an organization, I would say. So a CFO, a finance professional, needs to be concerned about that. IPA, intelligent process automation. So organizations are saying, why am I doing a certain function which I was doing? Why can I not change it? So I don't know whether you have heard about robotic process automation. So basically it does is, there are a lot of processes which you're following every day, kind of a keyboard command. Let's say an Excel sheet comes in, you type in and everything like that. So finance professionals saying, what, can we not automate it? Let's make it let's implement an RPA. And the next level of RPA is intelligent process automation, where you try to figure out what needs to be done, what not needs to be done. So finance professionals say, we're not going to waste our time. Let's have an IPA solution or an RPA solution, and let's reduce our mundane job or something which is repetitive and concentrate on something which is more value. Advanced analytics. I will touch upon this a little bit ahead also, but organizations are saying we need analytics. And for you finance professional, this is one of the most emerging trend out there. The demand for analytics is huge. I always give it an example. It's like, if analytics is like the headlights of a car, it helps you look in front and tell you what you may see in dark, what you were not able to see in dark out there. So I think analytics organizations are using to understand what the future is going to be, and how do I prepare for that future today. BPO, business process outsourcing, I've already everyone knows about it, so I won't spend time. It's about making a decision what needs to be done internally, and the rest of it can be just outsourced out there for an entity which is proficient and is doing at scale for other people out there. Then is lean process designing. Organizations are saying we don't need a very heavy design process. We need a lean process. Design requires a minimum number of people to operate it, somebody who has a knowledge of the system, and also last, who has the skills and capability for that system. So very, very critically important change which is happening in an organization. So as I said, I will discuss about what does this mean. What does it mean to me? And you would have asked me that, Gaurav, okay, fine, you're saying this, it's great. Can you tell me how does it impact me? What am I supposed to make out of it? So, and the basic question which anyone would ask is that, okay, if the business is changing, are the careers also changing? That's a good question. And the answer is yes, the careers will also change. The jobs which did not exist 20 years back exist today. And the jobs which will exist 20 years from now do not exist right now. So careers change, jobs change, skill sets required for this change. And that's why it means a lot for finance professional. So let me take you through some figures. And I'm not just saying a fact, right? And we'll just pick it up on digital, since we are talking about digital, and everything right now is impacting in business through digital. So we did this survey, and I think surveyed more than, if I'm not wrong, 4,200 odd people from various corporates and everybody, and we asked them about digital skills. We wanted to know how future ready are the people, right? So we asked them, and we asked them a simple question. We asked them, how do you perceive your digital skills? And the question was, how relevant do you, not somebody else, I'm not asking somebody else's opinion, how relevant do you consider digital skills to be for accountancy and professional in your industry, right? Nobody else's opinion. So 85% of the people said yes. So 85% of the people agree and consider that digital skill for accountancy and finance professional is very important, right? And this is a very important slide. I'm telling you, please don't, get your attention away. Look at this slide. This is a very important slide. So I repeat again. So 85% of the people we surveyed, of around 4,200 people, agree that digital skill for accountancy and finance professional is relevant as per them. How relevant do you think? Not somebody else, right? Now we ask them, in the role that you perform, okay, so you said 80%, you said 85% of the people said that it's important. Now the role that you perform, do you consider that you have the right level of digital skills required? 63% of the people said no, or 63% people said yes, sorry. So that means around 37%, apologies for my handwriting, it's really bad, I'll try to improve in the next one. I think digital has made my handwriting bad. So 37% of people, let's say around about 40% odd, which is every 2 in 5 people, despite knowing that digital skill is required, do not have the right level of digital skills. So what does it mean? So when we say the organization is looking at the vitamin M and is trying to maximize revenue and profitability out there, and the only way to go about is right now is digital, we have 40% of people who do not have the right digital skills. So it is a huge gap to be filled in. That's a point of research, that why is it that 40% of the people are not skilling? So what will happen? Either they will upskill, right? Either they can upskill, or they will become redundant, right? So they would remain as status quo and probably become redundant or not required in the new level. So that's a big scary part, but that's more essentially important for generation which does not want to change. But I'm sure a lot of the new young generation, they already have the digital skills. I think a lot of things are going to be changing, right? So as I said, digital is not just technology. It's not, the leaders of our organization realize that being digital has nothing to do with technology. It has to do with people. It has to do with me, you, who adopts these technology. So there is a requirement of continuous reskilling. You cannot say that I have learned and I will not learn any longer. right? So there is a half life of every skill, so to say that, the skills which you have acquired will have a certain life. So there's a half life of skills, and that is decreasing. So the skill you may acquire, and I'll give you an example. 40 years back, if you had acquired one skill, that could have taken you through your entire life of working. And I'll give you an example. Somebody who was working in a printing press, he had learned a skill of how do you put in those dyes and colors, getting the right combination and everything. That would have enabled him to survive for the next 30-40 years, for his entire career, till he retired out there. But the more you go ahead in time, the skill set and the relevance of that skill and the shelf life of that skill starts to decrease, right? To give you an example, I was taught my MS-DOS. Nobody uses DOS right now. Same thing, people are learning Python. I don't know what's going to happen in Python some years down the line and everything like that. So newer skills needs to be acquired. Older skills shelf life is decreasing. So that's where continuous reskilling is required. And that's a great area of research. It's like, what is it that is changing out there? So that is very critically important. And I always say this is the most beautiful time for the young generation. So now let's say if you want to develop the digital quotient out there, it's all, as I said, it's all a part of mindset. It's all about you, right? It's about that mindset. It's about you and how you perceive that you can work on it. And younger generation is amazing at it. I'm really amazed to see the young generation, my nieces and my nephews out there, and they're amazing. The collaborative working which they can do is amazing. They have, give you an example. They're working on WhatsApp group, they're working on chats, they have their channels created, they're studying together. And in my old days, it was all about going to the library and getting together as a group and calling them up. But now things have changed, but new way of working has come in. New business models have emerged where you may work in different parts of the world, you may work in different teams, you may work in different time zones, but you're still working in a common direction of an organization. So these kind of work requires a solution which has digital embedded in it, and the change is ongoing, right? In whatever, so I'll just go very quickly on. In whatever you do, make sure you have the ethical lens. You cannot be unethical in whatever you do. So very critically important and very, very highly focused is, do not let go of your ethics and do that. And lastly, digital detox. No matter what you do, I think you need to detox and cut away from what is it gets too much of technology. Now, I did say about decade of opportunity. I did say that this is an opportunity for young generations. Now I'll ask, I was discussing with one of my friends, and he said, Gaurav, we talked about how, digital skills is very imperative, how business models are changing towards digital, everything like that. How do you know that this generation is really up to it? That was a good question. I said, let's do some test out there. And I went back to my home, and I also did some couple of tests out there. And I figured out and I asked a couple of questions, and you can ask those questions. So let's say if you are in this audience and you are a young person, not like me, but a younger person out there. And I'm sure 90% or 95% would have either WhatsApp or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or Snapchat or anything like that. 95%, either one of those you would have. If not 100%, I'm not sure, but let's say I'm just assuming 90-95%. So let's say even there are 400 people attending out there, I'm assuming 380 out there would have it, or 360 would have it, 40 people would not have it, rare case, right? Did any one of you take any classes for Facebook or for WhatsApp? How do you do that, right? Probably not. You just went in, you just found your way and did it. So I asked, and I recall, my parents, when I had asked them and they were asking me, what is this Facebook and everything? Actually, I had to take an entire, you can say, a session for them to make them understand. They were like, what is this Facebook? Why do I need to be there? Then I tell it, dad, you'll be able to find your friends, a birthday, yeah, wo. And then, they were asking questions, what is this DP, what is this hand thumbs up, and when do I do that, and what are these emojis and icons and everything. So that would have taken entire 1 week of answering those questions one after another, right? That shows the digital divide. For them to catch up to what is out there, and it was not even a big digital revolution, it was just a small digital social interface which had no real impact per se, no real impact, no business impact or anything out there. Took them a week of questioning and answering, and then they picked it up, and now they still get stuck, and they're asking me, why is it this asking for two-factor authentication, how do I do it? And I still answer those. But that's the digital divide. And if I ask any younger generation, everyone would have done it. Nobody would have taken any class or session for Facebook, or nobody would have read any manual or probably any online data for what is Facebook about. They just learn it, they just pick it up. So that's why it's a decade of opportunity for youngsters. That's why Generation Z is really at an advantage right now, because things of digital which may have happened in the next 10 years have happened right now. And I'll give you another example. So I was discussing with another colleague of mine whom I had done my MBA with. He was in marketing, and he says that, Gaurav, I'm actually logically redundant in my system, because the organization is now more or less concentrating on social media marketing, and uh, that was never taught to me, but that's another thing. But the maximum experienced person I have is 3 to 4 years or 5 years, because that's where it has gotten the momentum. So a head of social media in an organization would be as young as 25 out there. And same is within finance. People are saying in finance, I'm revolutionizing, I'm having RPA out there, and I'm having these youngsters who are heading this project out there, because they know what exactly the technology is. They understand in and out, and they are able to maneuver and implement it. So for all of you who is out there, need to also prepare for this future, because this future is no longer in future, it's just right staring at us at our door. The moment you finish any college, university, and you open up the door, it's just right there. It's not in far distance away. It's already there, it's facing you. So that kind of a digital part you have to understand, and you have to do it, right? So as I said, the next decade is a decade of opportunity. There are significant drivers of change which has happened. Sustainability of your role, your work is imperative, and the way we were doing in a profession has been reimagined. We are no longer doing the same thing. 20 years, 30, 25 years back, we used to have those, in 98, we used to have those books of account, trial balance, and which never used to balance, manual vouchers. Everything is gone, nothing. There is no paper trail. There is all digital trail, digital footprint is out there. So things have changed, and same is going to change for the profession out there. Now let's look at what the work has transformed. So this another survey which we said, we asked people, what do you think, to what extent careers in the profession are going to change, right? So the gray one indicates changing to some extent, and red one changing significantly. So majority of the people agreed, and this is in India, that it's going to change significantly the way we are working. In fact, remote working is one of the most evidence of how things are changing. Working from home, nobody could have thought that organizations will start working from home, and whether they were ready for it or not, now they have become ready for it, right? And so when we asked them, this was before COVID, how quickly do you expect this to happen? So people said it's going to happen in next 2 years out there, or next 3 to 5 years. But I think it has happened far quicker, far sooner, and at a rapid pace, which has happened right now. So coming to the question, and this is a third research which we had done. So we identified what are the 20 emerging trends which is shaping our careers, right? Now, if you look at this part, I'll just take you to 2 or 3. I won't bore you with all of them, right? Automation. I think I've talked enough. So it frees up the professional. Robotic process automation is a simple example. Those of you who don't know about robotic process automation, go Google it, find it. I'll give you an example. Google it. Earlier, we used to go to library. We used to ask people. Now we just Google it, and everything is out there. Rent a CFO. Can you believe it? Organizations are saying, why do we need a CFO? Let's have outsource CFO. People already have HR department outsourced. So can we have a CFO who does not sit in my organization, but sits in another one? In fact, there are organizations which we have met in Pune who had CFOs sitting in India for companies which are abroad. So you can actually rent a CFO. Digital learning. We are undertaking digital learning right now. What are we doing? You are, I'm assuming, gaining some knowledge of what I'm trying to say for the last 20 minutes, but that is digital learning. Your classes, I'm sure, a lot of those learnings are happening digitally, right? And Generation Z. So I think a lot of people in the university would be the Generation Z, would be the young people who are tech savvy. And I've talked a lot about them, how you are at an advantage. And for people, old people like me, we need a skill transformation. We need to understand how careers adapt, and we need to adapt for the same. Now let's look at an interesting part. Since I've talked so much about what the world is changing, you may ask that, Gaurav, okay, fine, the world has changed, and you did mention sometime back that the roles or the jobs which existed 20 years back no longer exist, and the roles and jobs which did not exist which exist right now did not exist 20 years back. And so with the future, the jobs which exist right now may not exist 20 years hence, and the 20 years hence jobs have not, and nobody may have thought about it right now also. But let's look at the broad area from a finance perspective, what careers you can look at. And as of now, these are the 5 zones. 10-15 years down the line, they may change completely. So we can get back to another presentation at that point in time. So let's say the first role is of an assurance advocate. What does an assurance advocate do? As a finance professional, assurance advocate makes sure that organization is following all the rules, regulations, compliances. You are filing your returns properly. You are making sure that you are in compliance with any legal liability out there. Very critical role. He is basically safeguarding an organization from any liability which may arise of non-compliance out there. Very, very important role out there. So they are the should I say pillars of an organization, because if there are lapses in this, then organization will end up spending a lot of money, lot of resources, and a lot of time and effort in resolving those. So it's critically important that the assurance advocate, as we can say, work very well. And these are just broader terms. You can give any designation between them. You can be an internal auditor and everything. We're not giving designations out there. Designations for organization. I'm telling you about zones. Zones means, these are the zones which you can look to work. The second one is a business transformer, right? So who's a business transformer? He's basically an architect of an organization. So he says, can I transform this business? Can we change what we're doing right now? Can we do things differently? A lot of you may be business transformers at home, saying to your parents, I don't like this curtain, I don't like this, let's change this, let's change that, right? Similarly, and you will say that, this is the new fashion, cool style, we need to do that, my friend has done this, we need to change this, we need to buy a new car, and persuading your parents to do a lot of things. Same thing in organizations. You need change leader who say that, I think we need to change the way we're doing. Let's implement an RPA. Let's have a chat bot. Why are we having this inquiries? Can we look at new solutions out there? Can we make an organization more sustainable and future ready? And they can also be an external facing role. So he can be an external consultant, making probably an advisor or analyst working to advise other organizations what business transformations they should do. So we have people, finance professionals who work, let's say in Big Four or other places, who advise their clients that what business transformation they should do to become more effective and efficient out there. Third one is a data navigator. So who's a data navigator? A data navigator is basically a person who does a lot of analysis and comes and tells this and enables the CFO, CEO to understand what the future is like. So he can come and say that, I think sales are declining, or the credit period for this vendor is increasing. I think he's going to default. We should reduce his credit. So he is basically giving them the forward-looking analysis and insights, which is very critical for decision making. So he's helping in decision making out there. The fourth one is a digital playmaker. So basically, he's like a tech savvy person who will look to change a lot of things and look at adoption of technology, governance, and kind of a person who will be working a lot with the IT department, telling them, we can do this, we can implement an ERP, SAP, and stuff like those. But from a finance perspective, giving that insight. The last one is a sustainability trailblazer. Now, sustainability as a corporate responsibility has emerged very strongly, right? So they make sure that corporate is performing and discharging its duty towards the society and its stakeholders out there. Are there adequate disclosures, right, about how organization is doing? Are we building a sustainable future business out there, right? Are we establishing a framework which capture these things and communicates to the stakeholders? So a sustainability trailblazer works on all these aspects, right? And comes up with those. So that's very critically important. So these are broadly the basic 5 zones which I talked about. Oh, my line went all the way. So 5 zones which I talked about, which are the future emerging ones. And the good thing is that you can be in one part and you can change. So it's not that you're working in one role and you cannot change. You can just change to different roles, different sides, so one role to another. So you may develop your own zones, you may grow in one of the verticals, or you may change according to it, right? Now I'll discuss one element of it, and I've talked a lot about it. So remember, I talked about analytics in the new business model, which I had shown you, in which the transform business were here, and it was a beehive kind of one, right? So let's discuss about analytics. And I think a lot of you may be interested because that is something which is emerging also, right? So coming as a part, there is an organizational purpose, which is why the organization exists and what it wants to do. Then there is a business strategy which is aligned to achieve that organizational purpose of value out there. Then there is data strategy. We say that we need data, we need to look at our customer and everything. But there is analytics, right? Analytics which helps you guide. And then there is decision making basis. What you collect the data and what you analyze, you make a decision out of this. This is something which really aligns well with the decision making. And I did talk about a role which is the data navigator role. So I'm just going a little bit more deeper into it, of analytics out there, right? So why is it that organizations are doing analytics? Is because it enables faster and better decision making. So 50% organizations say we want analytics because we want faster decision making, we want real insight performance, we want better planning, forecasting, better understanding of risk. So this is how critical these functions are. There are other ones also in terms of clear visualization of trends, supporting business growth, but far important is decision making. A lot of times it's about what decision you make, which defines the future of an organization. So it's critically important. It helps them make the decision, it helps them forecast, it helps them plan, it helps them understand what are the risks in this and make an informed judgment out there, right? And there can be 4 types of analytics for those who are interested. One is backward looking and one is forward looking. The backward looking will tell you what has happened and why did it happen. The predictive one will tell you what will happen next and what actions should be taken. These are the 4 questions which you should ask. What has happened in my life also, why did it happen? What is it that going to happen next? What is going to be the tomorrows, and what action should I take? How do I prepare for the future today? These are the things which you need to understand. And if you look at from organizations, what are being undertaken right now is most organizations look at what has happened. What has happened is good, but not all are looking at forward looking. This is where the attention needs to be. You need to understand what is going to happen and what actions do you take. So that is where organizations of the future concentrate on. So that's where you should also look at what needs to be done. And the technologies which are being used right now, I think everyone is aware about Excel and everything, but that's not the best one. I'm sure you must have heard about cloud computing. There is RPA, machine learning. Usage is less, but you would find over a period of time that they will start to increase. More and more organizations will start to adapt these, and you need to be aware about it. Everybody used to say, earlier on, 20 years back, you need to know Excel. Excel is everything, but Excel is no longer everything. It's just one of the things out there, but there are other things which are emerging, which needs to be also be understood. And this is my last slide. I think I've taken a lot of time. So my advice for anyone out there as a young student way forward is be adaptable. World is changing very fast. Get tech. Do not ignore tech, because if you ignore tech, you will be ignored by everyone. Take risk. Because everything is so new out there, it's important to take that risk from organization and from individual. Relearn. it's not only from an individual that we need to relearn and reskill ourselves, but also from organization. They need to understand from their insights what has happened and what actions need to be taken. Work your brand. For everyone, as an individual, you need to work your brand. People need to know you, that you do great job out there, right? And from an organization, you need to create your own brand, because if you don't have your own brand, which means something, you would not get that attractiveness in the market. Customers will not buy you. A lot of people say, I want to buy an Apple. It's kind of a brand which has been created. The phone is the phone. It calls, it has the same apps which other people use, but it's a brand which you work. Reach out. Very important to reach out, everyone. Learn data. It goes similar with the get tech. Need to understand data is your new friend, new oil. Find sponsors. For individual, yes, important to understand who can help you in your journey, in your life. Rethink your CV. Your CV should not be very mundane out there. And lastly, do what you love. So if you do that, then it's good enough. And you just need to ask yourself, which way are you looking? The wind of change is blowing. If you're happy, and if you're looking in that directions, you're enjoying, like this girl on the right, or you can probably sulk and say, my hair is getting bad, and you can be on the other side. So it depends on the wind of change you are looking at. So with that, thank you very much, and back to the host.
I'm sure all of us will completely agree with Mr. Gaurav Kapoor that there is a half-life of every skill. The more we go ahead in time, the shelf life of our skills is decreasing, and we need to upgrade our skills and reskill. Thank you for the wonderful session, Mr. Gaurav Kapoor. Any questions from the delegates for Mr. Gaurav Kapoor? Kindly post it in the chat box. I repeat, delegates, any questions for Mr. Gaurav Kapoor? Kindly please post it in the chat box. So all of us are completely agreeing with whatever the session was, that we need to upskill, we need to reskill, and we completely agree that the shelf life of our skills is very low, sir. Yes, sir. Now there is a question from Ms. Sahana Prasad. So please give your opinion about blockchain and cryptocurrencies.
Okay. So thank you, Sahana Prasad, for this question. I think it's a very, very relevant question. And so I'll not only address that, but I'll address also much more larger than that part also, and how, things are also changing. So yes, blockchain, cryptocurrencies are obviously the new kids on the block, and nobody's denying that, they are not making an impact. They are in fact making a great impact. And for example, blockchain, I'll give you an example. So people are thinking of how blockchain can impact traceability, auditability of a transaction. Everyone knows about double entry bookkeeping system. We know that we have a double entry. Long time back there used to be single entry also, but double entry bookkeeping. Can we actually have a third trail? And I'll give you an example. So let's say if you have a fixed deposit with the bank out there, and you usually, when you go out to the customer, you take customer's original receipt, and you just take an advice of it that it's correct out there. So in fact, if you look at what happened in the Satyam case, couple of years back, there was a lot of fixed deposit which were taken, and then they were broken. They were said the original receipt was lost, so you got a reissued, and basis that you broke their account, you created another one, and everything like that, right? So let's say if you had a blockchain mechanism, just to say that, right, it's really difficult, should we say immutable, to destroy a record, a transaction that this transaction has done in. So for a person who's, let's say, an internal audit, to understand whether a fraud has happened or not, he can use actually blockchain to confirm that. So that becomes like a third ledger entry, which helps him actually identify and understand where the transaction has been done, and whether it is an authentic coming from the source, because it's immutable. It has an audit trail out there, and who made a change at what point in time. So just giving an example, the blockchain is one of the ones which is using. Cryptocurrency is also gaining a great amount of traction out there. In fact, we had done a research on initial coin offering, and I'll share that in the chat also. Please go through that, and happy to connect with you separately on the same or there. But technologies are changing the way we are doing. And I'll give you one simple example, a very, very nice technology. So in fact, we all know that, we do stock, closing stock for the year end, and we do, you count your inventory and everything like that. So in fact, one of the organization actually used drones. So the client was, had coal pit mine. So it actually used drones to figure out what area the coal was covering, what height it is. And it could actually come out and say that, this is the amount of inventory which is lying for you as an open cast mine outside, and this should be taken into account. So I'm just telling you how people are actually using technologies to come up with those solutions. I'll give you another example since we are on the same, and it's how beautifully someone told me, this, no, I've not verified or anything like that. Someone told me that there was one person who was claiming agriculture income for his, he had a piece of land, right? So for that, he was claiming an agriculture income, which is tax free and everything, for years and years and years, right? So he was claiming that, and everything was good. So one day he got a notice saying that, this is not an agriculture income. You are probably diverting your whatever black money or some other money through that agriculture income. And he went and contested and everything like that. The guy in the tax department actually showed him images from ISRO saying that, these are the images of your land over this period of time. There was no crop which was grown in and everything like that. So I'm just telling you, technology is being used so massively to find and detect where people are trying to evade a lot of things, and also to get solutions out there. So it's beautiful how new innovative ways of working, how innovative business models are also emerging using technology out there. So I'm happy to connect, but that was a great question. So yes, blockchain is impacting. People are looking at how do I get more traceability, auditability of a transaction, and much more verifiability of anything which is out there. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So one more question from Dr. Narmada Kandi. What are the kind of analytical jobs in accountancy and finance? What kind of technical upskilling helps the freshers to get into good jobs in field of accounting and finance?
I couldn't hear that very clearly. Can you just let me know once again, or let me? I'll see it on the chat probably.
Yes. By Dr. Narmada Kalgi.
I'm trying to find that, but can you just repeat the question? Yeah, please. Yes. Thank you very much. Sorry for the same. Yeah.
Yeah. What are the kind of analytical jobs in accounting and finance? What kind of technical upskilling helps the freshers to get into good jobs in fields of accounting and finance?
Okay, correct. So that's a great question. So there are many jobs in analytics and finance out there. In fact, as I say, when I talk to anyone, the role of an accountant 20 years back was behind a computer screen. Well, 20 years back, there were no computers. Let's say like 15 years back, behind the computer screen where he's looking at annual accounts and he's compiling and he's just doing that. Now, the role of an accountant has moved from behind the screen to front of the screen, where he has to come up to CFOs, CEOs and explain them why the numbers are what they are. So earlier he would report that, sales is declining. I'll give you an example. Sales is declining, revenue is declining, profit is declining. Fine. That's my job is over. Now he has to come up and give an explanation. And he has to give an explanation. Let's say he has to do an analysis and say that, because of this customer in this region had flood, and because we got a decline in that, we had an impact on our sales revenue. And because this customer's margin, EBITDA margin was so high, right? Our overall, and he went off, so our overall EBITDA margins got even more squeezed, as a result of which, so he has to come in front of the, leave the computer screen, behind, and come in front of it and tell them what the numbers are talking about and why are they talking. And not only that, he has to come up with the solution. So he has to say that, I think in order to maintain the EBITDA margin, we need to take a 2% price increase in this for everyone. He has to come up with the solution. So that kind of analytic roles is what is expected out of a future finance professional. So no longer that, I've just compiled accounts and this was my job. Now you take care of it. It is your responsibility. No, that's no longer the case. In fact, board of directors want to know from CFO and not from CEO that will we get cash flows? In fact, in this COVID-19, everybody was asking CFO, tell us, are we solvent? Do we have cash flows? Do we have to survive? So I think the role has changed. And so there are many roles. You can call it by many names out there. Somebody may call it analyst, somebody may call it research associate, somebody call it research analyst, senior analyst, somebody may call him a data scientist. There are different names organization can give you. So I'm not getting into nomenclature because that is organization specific, but these roles exist and they are existing for a reason out there. Yeah, I hope that I understand. And the skill set which you require, I think first and foremost is your thorough knowledge of finance and accountancy, right? So if you do not have a thorough knowledge of finance and accountancy, let's say, if, what we say to our students, like you first understand what ACCA qualification is. Along with that, so ACCA qualification, we teach a lot of aspect, right? From big data to data mining to AI, blockchain, everything. But you need to have a solid foundation. How will you work digital if you don't have a solid foundation? If you don't know how finance works, how entries work, it's not going to work. You need to get your first knowledge very, very strongly ingrained. Once you're known, because you're known for your knowledge first, then comes the digital skill. So you can acquire over the period of time. You can understand how it works. Your organization itself will help you. So other than that, you can do Python and other things. So that's okay. Yeah, it's not very difficult to even create a chatbot for yourself. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. One more question from Mr. Rajat. What is the role of finance and accounting professional when all the tasks will be automated?
Yeah. So a good question, but a simple answer to that. Do you know that actually planes can fly themselves? They can take off from the ground and they can land by themselves. But we still have pilots. So, it is very much possible to have technology. Technology has a lot of role to play, but technology never replaces the human element. And I'll tell you where it does not replace. It does not replace when it comes to decision making, your ability to foresee. You use technology to basically substantiate what you're saying, right? By facts, figures, and technology. It can be as simple as somebody saying, you have at least in Delhi, we have a lot of these cameras and everything out there. So a lot of places the cops are not there. So you get automatic fine on your mobile, and it gets associated with your driving license to your car. You can't sell it and everything like that. So technology is enabling you to do that, right? But you need human intervention to understand what needs to be done, what implementation has to be done, and what decision has to be taken. So you may understand that come up with analysis that because of this, we have found that people are not crossing stop lines. The number of accidents have decreased. So human solutions are very, very critically important out there, right? Technology is there to support you, and you need to use it to support you, right? So how do you get to the decision making? So not all jobs go away. The jobs which are mundane, the jobs which does not require a lot of knowledge per se, the jobs which are repetitive, they will go away. No fact about it. It will go away. Why do you need somebody to take one information from Excel sheet and put it in an email and send it? I'll give you an example. So an organization, what it used to do was every day used to get the outstanding dues from a particular client, and one person's job was entire 2 hours used to take the name, first name, amount due, and send it out to say, dear customer, this is your outstanding, you need to do it, and everything used to 2 hours to 3 hours. A manpower, you're paying him salary, is doing that. Next thing organization did was it implemented an RPA. What it did was the Excel sheet used RPA, nothing but automating everything, automating keyboard stroke. So automatically it used to pick up from the Excel sheet, prepare a mail, send it out with the red receipt, and every day used to do it. Why do you need to? So those repetitive jobs go away. But to come with an analysis to say that, I think we should concentrate on top 10% of our client whose outstanding is the highest by having some other initiative. Can we do that? So that human decision has to be taken, but you need technology to support you onto that. I hope that answers it. So jobs will change, the profiles will change, repetitive, mundane will obviously go away. Yeah.
Definitely, sir. So adding to that question, Dr. Vishal Srivastava asks, what are the minimum tools and softwares students need to learn to start their journey in this technology-based financial sector?
Great. So as I said, first and foremost, your base should be strong. You cannot build a building if your Yeah, if your ground floor is not, if your foundations are not strong, if your foundations are not strong, no matter what you build onto it will fall onto it. So what I say to the students right now is, you have the digital quotient. You can, you're not scared about technology, you're not scared about digital aspect of it. What you lack right now when it comes to, older generation, I would not say older generation will be working for long, is your knowledge about the subject per se. So they would know better tips and tricks of how works in finance, accountancy. Their knowledge, their ability to undertake a transaction will be far superior than yours. So first get that disadvantage, convert it to your advantage, where your knowledge and skill is really up to the market, right? Top it up with digital tools. What I'm saying is, no, I'm not asking you to become a coder. That's for individual to say that I want to learn Python, or whatever he wants to learn out there, right? Java, Python, that's for them to do. That's not what is required of you. You will not get a job because you just know that. You will get a job because you know first your subject out there. They are coming to take you, right, for your subject out there. Second thing is, you need to understand and have that perspective that in this changing technology, how will this role change? And I'll give you an example for that, right? So we are also doing a lot of transformation in an organization. So we need people to understand that, this is a repetitive process. Can we change it out there? And there's an IT department who will be working with you in our case, and in a lot of organization, IT department, you tell them that, we are doing these 6 steps. I think these 2 steps are not required. 3 steps can be automated. Only the last step of approval needs to go to my CFO, right? And a very simple example, let's say, if you receive a machinery in your factory, once a purchase manager has said that it is up to the quality, after that, why should it go through all the departments? Ideally, once he has approved it, automatically it goes to the vendor. It should, in the books of account, look at the vendor account, look at his limits, look at his time period, and finally it should go to the CFO or somebody who approves it out there. You don't need somebody to prepare a voucher and then say that, we need to approve it. Once it's in your factory and it is of quality, there should not be any other step. They should all be automated out there. Why do you need the step? Why do you need it? You just need final approval that, yeah, we're making payment. And that also should say that, he's within his limit. Only by exception, you should not sign it off. The final one is just to say that you have the money in your bank account when you're paying the payment, right? You cannot make a payment if the bank. I'm just giving an example an organization did. So as a finance professional, you should be able, when you join in an organization, you should be able to know how technology can transform. You can say, sir, why can we not use RPA? I can tell you these things can be automated. You work along with the IT department, he'll develop that code, he'll do that for you, and he will prepare that for you, and the benefits are for everybody to see. If you want to do it, nobody's stopping you. You can learn these various languages and start coding yourself. But first, get your basic right. If you do not have your basic right, it will not work in. And a lot of organizations will help you. There are different softwares in different organizations. They will help you. They will train you that how do you use it. You just need to think more laterally out there. That's my advice to everyone.
Thank you, sir. So one more question from Rahul. What are your insights about Genesis technology?
Okay, that's a I would rather put it in this way. Can you actually more clarified? And I'll be very honest with you. So not much is talked about in terms of Genesis technology. Is it something particular you want to know about?
Rahul?
Can you just type that? I mean,
Mr.
yeah.
Rahul?
So should I answer it more in terms of what? Yeah, is he typing?
Maybe, sir. We'll just wait for us.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Any other question?
Yeah. In the meanwhile, we'll take one more. Yes, sir. Rahul has responded. Yes, sir. It is also related to crypto and blockchain.
Correct. So I think I have answered the crypto and the blockchain part of it, how relevant it is. And, okay, let me also bring in some other thoughts to it, that, how you can use technology for your own benefit. And I'll give you an example. So, and I met this young person who actually, build up an entire business model, and also showcased it in a way that what can be automated or not by taking a public example out of it. So I'm just telling you from the technology perspective out there that yes, things are changing. So what he did was he actually said that a lot of organizations are following. He took it from the annual report and said, organization is following this. I think the organization can come up with this solution. This is what employers are looking for. Can you give them those insight with what technology can go for it? They're not asking that you should know about the technology, but they are asking, are you aware about this technology? So the question of being aware about technologies, right from cryptocurrency to blockchain to RPA to machine learning, is very much required out there. In fact, we did a research on machine learning, which is a great one, and it actually talks about it, what is happening. And I'll give you a very simple example. So this is again a case study. So an organization, what it did was, it was an finance and HR. So they were together. So they used to get a lot of queries like, HR department, how many leaves are there, how many leaves are policy, how many is pending for me, and they used to spend a lot of time on that. So they actually created a chatbot. So what this chatbot used to do is, it was connected with their with their database. And so if I am putting in that chatbot, how many leaves do I have, right? It will pick up from my database and tell me, Gaurav, you have 12 days of privilege leave, 5 days of CL pending, and everything like that, right? So I don't need to trouble the HR department. And let's say if I want to ask him, what is the car policy for me? So it will pick up that car policy, and it will. So they identified 150 odd questions, which were the most asked questions out there, and the chatbot was made such that whenever somebody wanted to ask those, you get it. And there are always exceptions. There was ask, and whenever that reply used to come, there was an ask an expert tab below it. So let's say if your question does not get answered in the way you want, so you can click onto that. But majority of the work got done. You did not need an HR person sitting day and night banging his head to reply to one person opening his Excel, finding it. You just had a chatbot which was connected to the database out there. So I'm just giving you an example how you reduce cost also. And obviously, because they work along with the finance department, they said, why do you need an HR person to do this? Let's just automate things. Somebody had a bright idea. A young person in finance would have said, let's do this, automate it. And he consulted with the IT department. They built a chatbot. It was a big organization. It worked well for them. Reduced cost, reduced time, instant answer, everybody's satisfaction increased. I'm just telling you. So did you require anything else? No, you required an insight. What do you need to do? Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for answering all the queries. As we are running out of time, let's wind up the session. Thank you, sir, for sharing your vision on the concept of emerging trends and skills required to equip oneself to face the future of finance. Thank you once again, sir. Participants, kindly note the feedback link for the session is posted in the chat box. Request the participants to kindly fill in the same. And I request all the participants to turn on their videos so that we can take a group photograph. Thank you all. Participants, now we break for 15 minutes and request you to join back sharp at 11 a.m. for the panel discussion. Thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome back for the virtual fifth international conference on emerging global trends in accounting, finance, and taxation. Thank you all for joining us back. Now, the next session is the panel discussion on the dynamics of re-engineering accounts, taxation, and finance in the new normal. Now, I request Ms. Megha to introduce the moderator.
Ms. Asha Murugu, ICAI, ICSI, Cost Accountant, CIMA Strategic Level, DIP in IFRS. Currently working at EY as Director in Financial Accounting Advisory Services, Team of Bangalore. Over 14 years of experience in IFRS, GAAP, and Indian GAAP accounting and regulatory matters, and over 12 years of experience in academic trainings, corporate trainings, lecturing in seminars, conferences, and presenting articles. Ma'am is assisting some of top colleges as Board of Studies member to frame the syllabus of graduate and postgraduate courses. Also sets the examination question papers for some of the top colleges of Bangalore. She has the ability to bring the practical aspect to the theoretical contents. Professional and industry experience. Ms. Asha has been part of large investment bank for the period of close to 2 years and assisted them in the preparation, finalization, and review of complex hedge fund financing in compliance with US GAAP, UK GAAP, Irish GAAP. She also aided them in various statutory fillings and key process improvements. She assisted the company in setting up convoluted work modules, tools in order to standardize financial statement reviews. Ms. Asha has played the role of finance manager for a large European-based startup company, Rias's Mobile Private Limited, for the period of 6 months and assisted them in setting a finance function and internal processes. She also helped the company to prepare first financials and get clearance from auditors. Ma'am specializes in providing auditing and accounting advisory services, including US GAAP and conversion services to leading Indian and global companies with a special focus on the hedge fund industry. She has been part of investigation team and handled critical areas of investigation for one of the leading software companies in India and was part of global services team of KPMG and assisted on ICANN project. Ma'am has worked with many corporate entities and assisted them in the variety of assignments. Some of the representative clients include Goldman Sachs, Mahindra Satyam, Online, BEML, Emphasis, Caterpillar, Wipro, Mindtree, Titan, Oracle, Delcor, Excite Life, etc. Academic and training experience. Ms. Asha is the member of Board of Studies in some reputed colleges and assists in framing the academic content to suit the practical requirements of society, and is the co-founder of EduPlot Learning Solutions, formed with the objective to train the students for professional and international level courses in the field of commerce. Ma'am is the visiting faculty of ICAI, Jain University, Mount Carmel College of Commerce, and has been visited as guest lecturer in many colleges of Bangalore, including Cambridge College, Shishadripuram College, Ramaya College, Maharani's College of Commerce, RC College, and many more. She is a great motivator speaker. As part of academic pay, financial assistance to small-scale industries with special references to KSFC at KFSC Bangalore. Achievements: 40th All India rank in CA Intermediate exam, first rank to Karnataka in CA Intermediate exam, felicitated with late Sundara Raja Endowment Award by ICSI, awarded as Super Team Employee twice at KPMG, has been awarded with kudos over 3 times, topper of college and awarded as Best Talented Student, nominated for Higher Potential Women Leadership Program at EY, state level badminton player in school. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am, requesting you to take ahead the panel discussion.
Thank you so much, ma'am. This was a very exciting introduction for me. Thanks a lot for this. And a very warm and a great morning to all of you who are on the virtual sessions. It's been a privilege and a honor to be a moderator. And it's very easy to be a moderator because I just have to ask questions and I just have to listen, right? It's more easy to do this. So I'm very glad and being part of this enlightening and enriching knowledge session organized by Jain University. And thanks for this opportunity. I have eminent panelists today with us, and it's been a great honor to have them. And it's my honor to introduce them as well. We have 4 panelists with us today. We have Dr. V. Rajesh Kumar, sir. So you want to come on a video?
Good morning, Ms. Asha. Am I audible?
You're audible, sir, but we can't see you though. Oh, now we can see you. Yes. So
it's taking time for the video to load.
It's taking some time. Yes. So we have Subaraidu, sir, with us.
Hi, Asha. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible too, and we can see you as well. And we have Mr. Rohit Nahar.
Hey, good morning, all.
Hi, Rohit. And we have my best friend. I can say that's a Pratik. Yeah. Hi, Pratik. Great to see you.
Very good morning to everyone. Yeah, pleasure to be here with all of you.
Thanks, Pratik. And these are our eminent panelists. I'll take a quick round of introduction. It'll take a half an hour to introduce all of them. And so please excuse me if I don't cover all the part of an introduction. I'll keep it brief because I got 5-page introduction list and I've been by hearting for the whole night and I could only do a little bit of it. So I will have to refer my notes to introduce each one of you, but it's been amazing to see your profile. So Rajesh Kumar sir has 28 years of experience, which is so amazing in the field of teaching. He's been teaching across different corporates and he's been teaching in different universities. And I'm proud to say, and I have to say that he's my teacher too. He's taught me financial management as a paper and which is like a core base to me even today. And his paper on capital asset pricing model was selected for an international conference at Harvard University, Cambridge, United States of America during May and June 2011. He's an MCOM graduate from a Bangalore University. He has doctorate in the area of strategy, right? While accounting is his accounting and taxation are his areas of expertise, he actually has a lot of passion towards finance. He's the founder of Vittam Pravina Gurushala, which is, I mean, that name itself is very exciting to me, sir. I know I had told you it's very nice name to actually have. And I'd asked sir that what does Vittam means, and he said it means excellence. Probably, sir, you can add on, but that's the academy he runs, and it's a finance expert academy which is engaged in spreading the knowledge of finance to students. He's trained many corporates. Some of the corporates that I can see and name that he has trained is he's been, I think he was I have never-ending list, sir. Honeywell, KPSL, Triveni Engineering, Tyco Electronics, many corporates has been training, and he's an academic excellence person. He advises a lot of colleges on academic excellence and how one should run the academics, etc. So it's very honor and a privilege to have you. A very warm welcome to the panel.
Thank you, madam. It's a truly great pleasure to be part of a panel moderated by you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We have Subaraidu sir with us, and the list of qualifications Subaraidu sir has is like half a page of it. Sir, amazing how you could do all of these. He is a graduate in economics and maths and statistics from the University of Lucknow. He added his MBA in finance from University of Lucknow. He's an associate member of ICAI. He's US CPA. He's a certified information system auditor. He's a registered valuer. He's a registered valuer with SFA. He has also done his bankruptcy course from IBBI. He's done his data analytics program with IIM Lucknow. Sir, anything else that I'm missing you want to add on that you've been pursuing?
Well, it's a continuous process. Even as you speak, there are a couple more in the pipeline.
Exactly. No, I always get amazed.
I would rather blame it on the times we are living in. The world is changing so dynamically, and I'm sure everybody.
Absolutely. Whenever I speak to sir, this is one thing I ask him. So, which course are you pursuing? And it's last 3 years he's been pursuing courses. I've been asking him, and he keeps sending me brochures that you should do this, you should do this. But I'm yet to do all of that, sir. It's been amazing. I think the way you learn and add feathers to your number of degrees has been amazing. So his experience is very rich. He's got 25 years of experience in FP&A, corporate finance, and IT roles. He was Asia Finance Controller at Virtusa India. He was General Manager at Satyam Computer Services. He's got a lot of experience in different industries, working in the area of cybersecurity, SOC framework, FP&A. I think this is like the list goes on and on. So it's warm welcome to you, and it's great to have you in the panel.
Thank you. It's an honor to be on this panel, and many thanks to Jain University for allowing us to share our experiences with young professionals.
Thank you, sir. So we have Pratik with us, and Pratik and me go a long way. So he's taught me a lot about EIR computations and insurance-related accounting. I take a privilege to say this in this forum. He has rich experience of accounting and advisory. So Pratik has 10 plus years of experience in audit and advisory. He was with KPMG and worked on many clients in KPMG. He's a chartered accountant and also an alumni from IIM Bangalore. He initially worked with audit practice, and he has experience in US GAAP, IFRS. I mean, anything to do with the GAAP, right? If you have a gap with the GAAP, Pratik is the right person to reach out, right? So anytime we say that I haven't understood a GAAP, it's one call away, and he's very down to earth person. I don't need introduction to be read from what college has shared me. I know him from years, and a very down to earth person, approachable. We can call him anytime, and I think that's the best part of it. I think I've been reading that successful people are very rare, but successful people with down to earth nature is very, very rare. And if you find them, it's like a killer combination to have. And Pratik, it's a great honor to have you.
You're being overly kind, Asha, but it's a pleasure to be here and learn from everyone.
I'll call you to learn some more GAAP, Pratik. So.
Sure, anytime. I'll try my best.
Yeah, so and he also runs the academy where they conduct the virtual courses on the GAAP, and you need to probably, I think he can probably share about the way they run it. It's very innovative and nice virtual learning that they've come up with, and very interesting videos that he comes up with. So it's very nice to see that. And I have last but not the least, Rohit and me, we chatted yesterday for 1.5 hours on everything else other than the panel, because we realized we are neighbors after we started chatting. After like 5 minutes before we end the call, we realized that he's going to stay in the same complex where I'm staying. So Rohit, I'm looking for it. And Rohit is very dynamic and energetic professional. So he's with EY now, and very busy. I think I was just trying to see his calendar yesterday to catch up. It was red all the while, and the minute it became green, I called him to catch up. So that's the schedule I think, Rohit, you run, but it's amazing. He's been expertised in the field of taxation. He's presently working, as I told you, as a senior manager with EY. He also possesses certification from Institute of Psychological and Educational Research. This is really interesting. CA plus psychology is a great course, Rohit. And maybe I'll have to just kind of pause and see how much of the psychology also you can, tell us today, and to crack that entire mindset of tax and psychology, right? Because psychologically, tax for me is always difficult. I always found it's just too much of interpretative subject. So we'll have Rohit to crack that for us. Warm welcome, Rohit. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Asha. It's great to be here among these eminent panelists and such a wide group of participants. Look forward to sharing the experience that I have and share some thoughts.
Thanks, Rohit. And we'll now start off with the panel. It's going to be a very exciting journey for us with too much of the knowledge flowing in. So I request most of you who are really, knowledge seekers to just get a pen and paper ready and then keep jotting down, because you can only hear these, right? Experiences can only be heard. It is never documented anywhere. So I'm ready with my pen and paper to write down what everyone is going to say. So the topic is today the emerging trends in each of the fields, right? Accounting, finance, taxation, and also academic side. So the way we run this panel is we can hear from the panelists about their experiences and thoughts on the areas of specialization that they carry for maybe a 5 to 6 minutes from each one of them. And we debate on the questions and we debate on our thoughts and what we are hearing. And I request we have 600 people. So we've been watched by 600 people. That's so amazing. And we at least expect 60 questions to be thrown in this forum so that the panelists have enough work to do and they come back with more answers after this panel as well. So I request each of you who are watching this to be very interactive, reduce my job of asking questions, just pose a lot of questions that you have in your mind. So with that, sir, maybe Rajesh Kumar, sir, I would just want to come to you to share your experiences, because it's an academic forum, right? We have people from every other region, but largely it's an academic forum, and it's something which I'm very close to, right? And in the last 12 years of my career, I'm juggling between a practical world and a little bit of academic also, because I'm teaching, as you know, sir. I kind of am very passionate about teaching, and I still see a lot of difference in terms of the teaching and what industry needs, right? What academic has and what industry needs. I know that we are talking about value courses, bridge courses. There's a lot which is getting spoken, but do you think it's getting implemented? We just want to hear from you about the academic excellence one should carry to be more relevant in this new normal world.
Thank you, Ms. Asha. So good morning, one and all. Very quickly, I'll take this opportunity to thank Jain School of Commerce, Dr. Dinesh Neelkant, my very good friend from a very long time, Ms. Asha, the moderator, whom I always, wherever I speak about her, I introduce as her an humble professional. And she's a classic example of how humility and hard work can take people to great heights. Truly proud of you, Ms. Asha, and very privileged to be part of this session moderated by you.
Pleasure,
Other panel members, truly privileged to be part of, to be amidst you and the participants. Thanks for being here and thanks for this opportunity. Theme is truly excellent and contemporary and the need of the hour. On the next few minutes, what I'll be doing is, from academic perspective, I'll be raising some issues and questions, which I'm very hopeful the other panel members and maybe even from the audience, we can get some responses because there are certain issues which is always under debate and for which we hardly have a solution. I at least hope we can find some solutions as a part of this discussion. But before I begin, a small concern. I think my video is not fine. So I think there is a problem with the sync. So in case you don't find sync between my lip movement and the video, I suggest you to please close your eyes and listen to what I say rather than what you see. Yeah. Right. We know education is not about filling the pots. It's about lighting the fire. And in imparting education, there are three dimensions: assimilation, dissemination, and creation. And there are three stakeholders in education: students, faculty, and the management, those who run the show. And the best of the worst part is there are challenges from every end. And since the theme is more about commerce and management and particularly accounting, finance, and taxation, obviously what we discuss is applicable to these domains in general. and of course, in particular, and for entire commerce and management education in particular. And whatever I mention or what I've observed over my past 28 years and what I've heard from those who have even better experience than me, and I'm sure most of this is what the students and the faculty from the audience should be able to agree with. So I repeat, there are three stakeholders in imparting education: students, faculty, management. Now, what are the challenges we have, particularly with regard to this domain? I'm sure most of us are aware. There is what is called Washington Accord for graduate attributes, Washington Accord graduate attributes, which lists out for engineering graduates, by the time they complete their engineering, what should be the attributes they should possess. We don't have anything in general for management, but there are many universities which have listed what is called graduate attributes for commerce and management pass outs. And very interesting. And in fact, it so very well gels with the theme of this conference. Very quickly, I list out what should be the attributes a graduate, a commerce and management graduate should be equipped with by the time he completes with his graduation or post-graduation or a professional course. Very quickly, deep discipline knowledge and intellectual breadth. Please keep this in mind. And this is something which probably has a lot of scope for debate. Creative and critical thinking and communication skills, teamwork, professionalism and leadership readiness, interculture and ethical competency, digital capabilities, self-awareness and emotional intelligence. I'm sure a Google search should throw out all this, but I would like to focus on the first two: deep discipline knowledge and intellectual breadth, critical and creative thinking. Of course, there's one more dimension which I'd like to put it later. First thing is the knowledge, what we're passing on. In fact, all these attributes we can condense into three broad categories: knowledge, skill, and attitude. The knowledge part, and unfortunately or fortunately, in commerce education, this has been the biggest challenge. The knowledge what we're passing on, particularly in these three domains, what is the relevance of it? There's a wide coverage. In fact, quite often, I also teach outside India, and the graduate program there is usually 18 months, 12 months, 2 years, and a lot of flexibility, which I'll mention later. But in India, it is compulsory 3 years, followed by 2 years post-graduation. And one general question is there a need for so much duration to be graduated? And definitely makes a sense in the question, because while there are lots to be imparted, whatever we're imparting, what is the relevance? I'll just mention one point my professor had mentioned 30 years back. I'm an alumni of Vijay College and had a professor who taught me accounting, was very popular faculty for CA and other courses as well, one Professor Nayak. He said, what we're teaching you today, for example, accounting, partnership accounts, company accounts, and in particular, dissolution, liquidation, whatnot. And he said, tomorrow when you go to interview, and if the interviewer asks, what do you know? What can you do to the company? He said, you have to say, I know how to liquidate your company. Of course, it is very far-fetched example, but very honestly, what is the relevance of these topics? I mean, I'm sure most of us, particularly the audience, the student and the faculty audience, know what is the coverage. And recently in an interaction with one of my CA friend was chairman of Bangalore branch, who was chairman of SIRC, he was mentioning 95% of CAs hardly have exposure for partnership accounts or corporate accounts. It's just the other side. Of course, maybe that is his experience as well. So question is, what is the practical relevance of some of these topics, what we teach? I was just giving example of accounting. Finance, it's all about managing financial statements. And essentially the theme of finance is value-based management and risk management. Essentially, everything falls into this. Now, are we providing an integrated knowledge of all this? We teach in bits and pieces. So, well, it is relevant. Is it really meeting the purpose? And 3, taxation. My understanding is what today, a person who doesn't have any knowledge on taxation is able to compute his taxable income, tax liability using softwares, packages, whatnot. But how many of our commerce graduates are actually able to do this for their own parents and family members? I think I saw a tagline on a t-shirt very recently. It said, I was born intelligent, education ruined me. I think probably this has happened with our commerce graduates. Probably without much guidance, they would have done a better job. I don't know. Probably we're giving them a framework where they're not able to think beyond it. But as students, this is one challenge. Of course, as students, they don't have an idea. But one problem they have is what to know, what not to know. And unfortunately, today the focus is more exam oriented. They learn for exam sake, not for learning sake. And the biggest challenge today is people want to become accounting professional, tax professional, finance professional. My take is it's not independent. People should be business professional. How these should get integrated is the key point. So as students, I think this is the challenge for students to think, and I've been thinking, I think how to cater to this is probably one of the questions I have to deliberate. Two, the second stakeholder, the faculty, the teachers. We say a teacher should open mind, take the hand and touch the heart. The best teacher are those who show you where to look, but don't tell you what to see. And let's be very honest. I've been a teacher. Ms. Asha is teacher, and most of you have been in various platforms teaching. Are we as teachers able to do this job? I'm including myself. It's not about any particular faculty. I'm including myself. Are we truly able to do this? Now, today, in fact, what Ms. Asha said, very, very true. What we teach, what industry needs, there's a big gap. Absolutely right. Why? One reason is there's a reluctance to change and adopt among faculty. Big reluctance. Just to quote one this thing, 3 years back in Bangalore University, once India started 2017, immediately it was put into the curriculum, but obviously the exposure for faculty was less. So there were workshops conducted by Bangalore University. I was lead faculty in one of the workshops, and we discussed at graduate level, postgraduate level, what to teach, what not to teach, what should be the coverage, etc. But after 2-hour discussion, finally it was the forum decided. It was a group of 400 plus faculty. They identified 12 problems and said, if we discuss these 12 problems, it is enough, because beyond this, it will be difficult for students to understand. Unfortunately, today, we go with ease of understanding, pleasing students in teaching what they can understand rather than giving them what is essential. This reluctance to change among faculty is the biggest challenge. Maybe one thing probably
Sir, just yeah, Rajesh Kumar, sir, just 1 second. I don't know, Sreen ma'am called me. I'm just thinking, is everyone can hear us, right? Just wanted to be doubly sure that you all can hear us.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am,
great.
you're
Great. Sir, sorry, sir. Continue.
No, thanks.
Sorry.
So one challenge from faculty perspective is the reluctance to change and adopt. And two, quite often faculty themselves, the skills that is required is their updation. And definitely, great extent, even teachers have become more exam-oriented approach than updating themselves and passing on the curriculum. So from faculty perspective, what should be done to see they are motivated enough to take it further so that what we impart is useful and relevant to what industry needs. In fact, remember one beautiful quotation. It says, intelligence plus character is the goal of true education. And are we providing that? 3, I don't see even faculty at fault, because there's a third stakeholder, management. And quite often this management, I think, which should take a key role. And most of the time, this management is more focused today. It's not a business school, it is schools of business. And even every education institution is focused on top line and bottom line. And if institutions can provide 2 things, one, the necessary infrastructure, and 2, adequate, appropriate, optimal teacher-student ratio, I'm damn sure faculty can do justice, student can do right justice. But this obviously lies in the hands of management. In fact, there's a beautiful saying by Albert Einstein. It says, I never teach my pupil. I only attempt to provide the condition which they can learn. And these conditions, of course, is responsibility firstly of the management and then of the faculty. So to what extent the management is able to provide this. And lastly, educating the mind without educating the art is no education at all. And in fact, one of the biggest complaint most of the industry give when they recruit our students is, your students are not ethical, your students don't come with right values. I mean, I'm generalizing. It's definitely excellent feedback as well. I'm giving general this thing because one thing that is missing in particular, and which I truly appreciate professional institutions, and they're implementing it, the ethical aspect. And remember the accounting scams, the financial misappropriation, the tax evasions, and I'm sure students are able to remember them more and even adopt it rather than going for what is ethical. So how about the ethical aspects of all these, which should be brought in and how it can be brought in? So to put it in, to condense and to just pose the questions, how to incorporate relevant content and only relevant content in the academia. What exactly, I mean, all of you have great expertise. You know better what industry needs, and you know also what actually is the coverage. So what in your expertise and exposure you feel should be the content, at least for these three domains, because commerce and management education is dominated by these three: accounting, finance, and taxation. So you understand what it should be, and how to equip students with appropriate adequate skills, and how to inculcate the right attitude and ethical dimension, and how to motivate the faculty. And yes, as an academician, I have my own responses, I have my own experiences, but when it comes from professionals, when it comes from the horse mouth, I'm sure it has better relevance. And just adding to one point, well, all these are questions. There are excellent solutions for this. I'm sure most of us are aware of the new education policy that is in the pipeline. And I request each one of you to please go through and see the flexibility that we have to ensure education is quality education. I'm sure some part of the discussion we can bring it into this thing. Let's just want to end with this. The biggest room in the world is room for improvement. Change is the only constant. So keeping this, how do you think, I mean, what all can be done so that we can keep improving ourselves is the point. Thanks.
Absolutely, Rajesh Kumar sir. It's been a pleasure to hear you actually. I mean, as you have been a great teacher, and I think those STM principles you now mentioned, right? Student, teacher, and management is really appropriate. And I was saying Subaraidu sir was just agreeing to everything that you're saying, because I can relate that, everything that you're saying is what is relevant for every stage of our life, right? It's just not as part of we being students until the graduation or post graduation, but every second of our life, this is important. And maybe that's exactly where the learning comes down, because at some point of time we all believe that we know everything, and that is where everything stops, right? I was actually hearing about this Harvard case study on tappers and listeners. I'm not sure if you have heard about this. What this research says is, apparently they called 10 people, and they said what you should do is you should just practice singing, like just practice whatever the song in your mind and tap it, like how I'm tapping it on the bench here, and like you have to now guess what I tapped it. Let's say now I'm tapping something, can you guess which song is this? The tappers thought, yeah, it's not a big deal, I will just now go and tap it and easily it can be guessed. So the person tapped, okay, Johnny, Johnny, yes, Papa, it was never guessed. Okay, happy birthday, it was never guessed. Favorite songs, it was never guessed. And it was like a big eye opener to all the tappers that, see, I've been tapping because the tune is in my mind, right? I know what I'm singing and I'm tapping, but all the tapping sounds the same. Actually, right? For the listener, they cannot differentiate what is getting tapped, because no instrument, no music, no lyrics, nothing. It's just a banging on the table. Apparently, 3 out of 100 people could answer. That is also out of guesswork. Okay? And they said we could not understand what was getting tapped. It was just a guesswork. So my point is exactly the same in education, right? We know what is in our mind as teachers, as professionals, as corporate ladder. When we climb up, we all know what's in our mind, but are we able to effectively pass on that to students, right? And tell them that what's in our mind is what you need to learn, instead of just tapping and asking them to guess what we tapped, right? That is where I feel that the biggest change in the education has to come. There's a role that every teacher has to play. Like Rajesh Kumar sir, how you took a name of your teacher who made an impact in your life. I take name of my teachers who made an impact in my life. Every one of us in the teaching profession has to create that impact.
Absolutely.
Right, I mean, which is what I feel. And now that we're talking about students and teachers, and it's a great thing for me to maybe go to Pratik a little bit, because he is a corporate teacher, and I'm saying corporate teacher because he comes up with innovative way of teaching, and very well I can relate to the tappers and listeners, Pratik, because we know we keep tapping gap and the listeners never understand gap, right? So this is a story across 15 years of my accounting profession. I keep bombarding that this is an accounting requirement. There was in one forum, I remember one of the persons stood up and said, "Madam, what you're saying is totally wrong." And I had to say, sir, what I have to clarify is I'm a messenger of the standard. The standard is written by somebody else. I'm just giving that message. Now, what I'll do is I'll pass on this message to a standard setter that it's wrong, right? So it was like an enormous effort to connect the gap to gap, right? So Pratik, what do you think about it? And maybe a quick 5-6 minutes of your views on what's changing in the accounting. Do you think this international gap, IND-AS, right? AS, US gap, do we need so much? And do you think it's more complicated or it can be more simplified? What's your views?
Sure. Thanks. Thank you, Asha. Thank you, Jain University. Very good afternoon, very good morning to everyone. When I was thinking about what's happening, what is it that we are all facing, Alvin Toffler's quote from Future Shock comes to my mind. And he writes, to survive, to avert what we have termed future shock, the individual must become infinitely more adaptable and capable than ever before. We must search out totally new ways to anchor ourselves, for all the old roots are now shaking under the hurricane impact of the accelerative thrust, the pandemic in this case. It's no longer the resources that limit decisions. It is the decision that makes the resources. I think what we are seeing currently is something that is unprecedented. If you asked me a year and a half back, would we be able to close audit financial statements sitting out of home? And I would have thought you were joking. No one would have really believed that something like this is possible. Same for learning. If you told me that all schools, play school to graduation, post-graduation, if they will happen online, I thought not possible, not effective. But we have chosen to adapt.
Virtual lunches can happen online, Pratik. We never thought. The best thing I miss is the AGM lunch, right? We used to go to AGM, have good food. So I used to say meeting means eating, but we are now just virtually eating. So
that's a big change that has happened, and we have been adapting the change. So of course, what we thought is not possible is now slowly, okay, this looks doable, this looks possible. And one of the big agent that is helping us bring this change about is technology. We are 600 people of us here. That's thanks to technology. People now close books remotely, share data, get onto virtual meetings, share bulky files. All of that is thanks to technology. So really the key trend that we are seeing is more and more of embracing in technology. We are still not fully embraced technology, and some very interesting cases. For example, robotic accounting is really the future. And what that will really look to do is you don't need people to do accounts payable, accounts receivable. You don't need someone to come and start punching in expense account debit to vendor, then post a bank entry. You can automate all of that.
Yeah.
So what one individual does in 50 clicks, you can just do it in 1 click, which therefore ties back as to what is it that we're going to teach in our schools and colleges. Because what we now teach them needs to be to deal with complexity, to how to deal with judgmental areas. So really what is changing is the environment is changing, we are adapting. Technology will get us there. And really, I think what we've got to focus on is how do we upskill ourselves? Because even after all the robotics, what will still not be taken out is the human element, is the human judgment. We all know about the gig economy. There are roles for people everywhere. I want a small project. I specialize in financial reporting. Maybe I can just do a small project for someone. It benefits companies in terms of costs. It benefits people in terms of giving them the flexibility. And it actually opens up opportunities for a lot more people to work remotely. Today, most of our work happens remotely. Yeah. So more opportunities, but at the same time, we've got to be up the game in terms of the skill to be able to make use of that opportunity. That's probably the real trend that I think I would probably think of.
Absolutely, Pratik. I remember as a child, right? My father used to tell me, switch on the TV. And then he started asking me, where is the remote? Now he tells me you're always remote, right? So he just can't find me. So every time we are on the virtual world, right? Every time we are agile, every time we are remote. So totally agree with you. And the way the accounting profession has changed, and the way the accountants are expected to change the dynamics of conducting audits, right? Closing the books of accounts. There are nights we used to sit together with the client to close the books. I mean, Subaraidu sir cannot, I think, agree more than this, because he's done 25 years of the FP&A controllership and etc. And I'm sure he would have seen loads and loads of people getting occupied in the in the conference rooms, and there was shortage of conference rooms when the audit season used to happen, because every other room is an auditor room, right? And I was talking to JLL at some point of time. They said whenever we plan the next the structures and etc., we are actually having dedicated audit conference rooms so that they don't occupy MD's room, because eventually MD is traveling all over and 90% of the auditors occupies MD's room, right? So this was, and from there to, I think, doing an audit virtually is a phenomenal change, right? I mean, we just can't imagine that how one can conduct an audit virtually, like clarify questions virtually, test documents virtually, vouch, verify substantive procedures. And it's been an amazing challenge for the profession, but I think we all made it. In the last 14 months, we're all digital. Okay? We're almost digital. We said kids don't use phone. Now everything lies in the phone, right? So which is where, and then now kids have also understood, they're so used to learning in the phone, they don't actually watch anything other than learning, because they're bored of it. Now they want to play, they want to go out. Maybe it's for a good cause that we're making them forced to use digital devices for good reasons, right? So that they're finding better reasons to live their life. So with that, right, there's just too much. I think Rajesh Kumar sir, you spoke about, Prateek spoke about, there's so much of information which is available. Anything that we want, Rajesh Kumar sir, you said, why don't you Google it? This Google has become a word by itself, right? I'll Google. Eventually, if you don't find yourself, you'll Google, right? Saying that, where am I? Right? So, which has become a trend in the world. Like, is with this data now, Subaraidu sir, it's to you, to your topic, that it's all about data, right? Data. We have been hearing this word day in and day in and day out, actually. And so, what's your thoughts about it?
Yeah, okay. I'm audible, right? I had a couple of slides to share, if possible, or we just want to kind of go impromptu.
You can
like that?
share, I guess, sir. Are you a co-host? Ma'am, can you?
Yeah,
can you
I get some share screen.
Yes, sir. You can share. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just sharing my screen now. Okay. So I had
We can
kind
see
of,
it.
what I prepared is that, in this era of privacy and data protection, how does the finance function actually kind of pivot itself to ensure traditional jobs of, ensuring that, value preservation and value creation that we are traditionally being called upon. So that is what I had kind of prepared for. I'll kind of quickly run through this. So basically what we're saying is, as finance people, generally, we are always dealing with value, almost practically every day or the other, particularly with, let's say, with the advent of IFRS and, all this um, uh, fair value concept coming in. Everything must be fair valued. So our lives are kind of revolving around value. And then, and we basically, valuation is what we know as the uh, applying the principles and the processes involved in arriving at the value of anybody, right? Anything, a business, it could be an asset, an intangible asset, or whatever. And value creation is basically what a lot of management accountants are supposed to do, whereas financial accountants, as we do know what more about valuation. Financial accountants essentially talk about ensuring that the value of anything that is there on the balance sheet is reflecting the right amount, if the true and fair concept is there. As management accountant, what we do is that we try to enable decision making amongst corporates, so that leads to value creation. So valuation, value creation, and also value preservation. When we do risk management, risk appetite finalization and all, and ensuring that the risks that organizations take remain within the risk appetite, what we're doing is we're ensuring that the value preservation happens. So that is how we as finance professionals have been kind of associated with kind of value, valuation, and value creation throughout. But what has happened is, in this new era of privacy and data protection, suddenly what has happened is, and I'm sure all of us would have read about the kind of data breaches that are happening left, right, and center. Today, hardly you come across any single day where you open the website or open the newspaper and find that any organization has not been breached. And the next thing that we do, that we realize is that somebody's privacy has been, privacy concerns have been breached and all those things. So point is, all of this has led to certain, a new dimension to us as finance professionals. We need to be aware of what is this privacy. If I'm going to conduct an audit to a client, is he dealing with any personal data, sensitive personal data? What are his practices by which he ensures information security for the data that he already has collected from a lot of people? And what really happens to his balance sheet if in case a data breach happens? So this has kind of brought in a stage where we as finance professionals also need to know something about data security, information security, reasonable security practices. What is privacy? When we say privacy, what is that we really mean by privacy, and what are reasonable security practices? And we suddenly find ourselves in a position where if we don't know these concepts, perhaps we may not be able to do our job either as auditors or as finance business partners, or maybe even as any other professional, right? So, in fact, just to this is perhaps is the main thing that I wanted to theme of my presentation. Recent studies have done that the average cost of a data breach to an organization in 2020 was about $3.86 billion. And an emphasis and interbrand study is a real eye-opener, which says that if today a data breach were to hit the world's top 100 brands, the amount of valuation that could be lost would be anything between $93 billion to $223 billion, right? And just to put that figure in perspective, the total investment by VC funds made in the United States in 2019 was about $135 billion, right? So that is the amount of value which is at risk, and we all know value at risk, right? As risk management professionals.
Absolutely, sir. Yeah. No, I was just thinking when you're quoting this number, sorry, I'm disturbing, but then, you know what, as a child, right, I've always been taught in school about thousands only, right? It's, we follow this Indian number system. It takes me a while to actually convert the thousands into millions. And then we're talking about billions of loss. Yeah, it just comes to my mind because all my life, Rajesh Kumar sir, you may agree, right? All our questions, all our sums, maybe in the education system is all in thousands. And we are talking about millions and billions of losses. So,
and trillions too. Okay. Now,
trillions too.
The important other thing is, a couple of surveys were done in the US, which basically sought to understand the attitude of consumers or to their companies after they came to know that a data breach, that their organization has suffered a data breach. Some telling statistics here. After the Target breach in 2013 in the US, besides the cost of $18.5 million of fines and $61 million to rebuild systems, this is the important part. 12% of local customers said that they would stop shopping at the store. 36% said that they would shop less frequently. And 26% of returning customers said that they'd spend less at the store. So which means that all those organizations which have built their empires based on brands and valuations and customers returning, and all the models that we've built, whether that be valuing a company for the sake of doing a merger and acquisition, or all those calculations would be going for a toss if these data breaches were to happen, all right? And then, of course, there's this added, tool that has come to the rescue of all of us, which is in the form of analytics and AI and machine learning, where these tools can be deployed in the world of cybersecurity to play a more proactive and what is known as threat hunting kind of a role, rather than always be playing a defensive role. So again, as finance professionals, while we might not require to be specialists in analytics or AI and ML, but at least if you are going to an organization to let's say conduct an audit, right? And that organization is showing, let's say, $100 billion of a brand on its balance sheet. And, you would be interested in knowing that what are the securities and what are the controls that this organization put in place to safeguard that asset of $100 billion. And is it using analytics, is it using AI and ML? And how is it the organization going about in protecting that brand is a question that, as a common sense, that would apply, that would come into your mind, I'm sure, Asha, and,
yes, sir.
Prateek, that, that what are these guys really doing?
No, absolutely, sir. Yeah, absolutely. Let's say you're looking at a balance sheet, sir, as you rightly said. In a balance sheet, if I find like there is a provision created for shoplifting, right? What we used to do historically is, okay, there is a shop, which is very common. And I think most of the Indian, the retail chains have got a heavy provision for whatever the reason. I think that's what most of the Indian retail chains end up creating. So now how much of the audit mindset goes to ask you that, yes, you have a shoplifting provision, very good, but what are the controls around it, right? How are you controlling this? What is the, what are the things to mitigate this? That is the kind of mindset that we need to bring. You're absolutely right, actually.
Absolutely. And also, let us say, sure.
Pratik,
And
you
just
want to
to
add on?
add, in fact, US listed entities, it is mandated for the auditor to conduct cyber security assessment.
Absolutely.
So you may not do a full-fledged in-depth assessment, but you at least need to do some level of cyber security assessment. And that's something we may not do for an Indian entity here. So I fully relate to what you're saying.
Right. So the Securities and Exchange Commission has mandated it that every listed company must compulsorily disclose as a part of management discussion and analysis that how do they stay on top of cybersecurity risks, correct?
Yes.
So suddenly all finance professionals have to understand something about cybersecurity risks to be in a position to at least evaluate that disclosure that the company is making in its MD&A, right? And this was really what really shocked me. You are doing a merger and acquisition. You bought a company, the Marriott Breach, for example, they bought this company called Starwood Hotels, which is not completely integrated into it. And that company that they acquired suffered a breach, not once, but twice, right? And, if you're doing a due diligence, the cybersecurity due diligence in M&A deals is suddenly something that has popped out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Nobody would have thought that this is an area where due diligence would need to be done, correct? And then the controls, for example, risk appetite, have the risk posed by the digital, and with digital business models proliferating everywhere, everybody talks about data as an asset. But I was really amused to read this statement on LinkedIn by one of the practitioners and the guru of data analytics, that have you really come to really think about it? We all talk about data as an asset, but it is just one breach away, one incident away before that huge treasure trove of data that you created could become a liability, and the GDPR could impose up to 4% global turnover on you as a fine, and there goes your asset immediately converted into liability.
Converted
right?
into a liability. Facebook is a classic example, right?
Exactly.
How much
Absolutely.
the Facebook went through for the data protection requirements was classic example.
Correct.
And then this is a
So,
wonderful statement, sir. Like yesterday night also we were speaking about it. It's one of the wonderful statements. When we've been taught in the accounting, we always thought liability comes first and then the asset. I think in the data world, we're always saying data is an asset without attaching an accountant to it. That, okay, please remember that asset always has a balancing liability.
Absolutely. And we're talking about billions, Asha, now with trillions, right?
Trillions.
Solar came to cost to the world $10.5 trillion annually by 2025. So this is the risk that we as finance professionals are really running if we don't do our job. So typically, what is the impact for all of us in this? So which means we as finance professionals of the future, we need to know about privacy legislations. We need to know about analytics. We need to know about cybersecurity and to supplement internal controls. Correct. So these are new dimensions that are basically our plain old profession of finance and accounting is suddenly getting exposed to. And perhaps, Asha, to an extent, that answers your question as to why do you keep kind of signing up to new courses and everything? Well, so much is changing, right? So I guess that's it. And my last slide contains some links to some reports and some data sources which all of us can kind of look up to in case we want to expand our knowledge in this area.
Sure, sir. This has been very enlightening. Maybe I'm sure we will have this content circulated to Jain University and they can further circulate back to all the participants. But this is a very, very enriching session. And I'll come back to you, sir. I know we said 5 minutes each for the topic, and which itself is the undermining statement, actually, because I know I'm talking to people with mountain of knowledge. So I'll have to just see how do we get everything in 10 minutes from you, right? So this was amazing, sir. This was very good. Now we'll just go back to one probably aspect of, we spoke about accounting, we spoke about data, we spoke about academics. Yesterday, Rohit, right? So Kiran Mazdoom Shah, right? So she made a tweet yesterday saying that first vaccinate those 3 crores taxpayers, because if they die, what happens to the country, right? So now the point that we have is, out of 130 crores, why only 3 crores taxpayers? This is, so you're my target, Rohit. I mean, I can talk about this subject. It's my favorite subject because we pay so much of the tax and it pinches all the time. Like, why am I paying? Why am I paying? And then at the other point of time, you feel very responsible citizen of paying the taxes. I mean, what is this game of taxes, right? It's just evolving, and we're still at only 3 crores taxpayers. And this surprises me actually. So with that, I'm just going to leave your thoughts on taxation, emerging trends, etc. But we'll talk about why tax as a subject is so focused and concentrated to group of people. So.
Sure. Thanks, Asha. I think that's a interesting statement you've made there. And honestly, this has in fact been on the minds of the government. So actually, let's start with that as a trend, right? The whole intention of the government has been to increase their tax base. Okay, that is a significant trend you see. And this has come about recently in a lot of the legislations. So you have a recent TDS, TCS provisions which have come in. I don't want to go into specifics of it, which is effectively to increase the tax base. Yeah, you have people who were even today not paying taxes, but a person who's paying them money is now required to deduct taxes from them and give it to the government. So I think expansion of the tax base has been a significant trend of late, and you will see that going forward also. I think a good example, something that others can relate to. I don't know, not many, some of you may have heard there's this project Insight run by the government. It's headed by the L&T Infotech, and almost all consultants, the big groups, are on it. And what exactly is Project Insight? And I'll explain that with an example. Say, Asha, you go to Mauritius tomorrow, and you upload a pic on Facebook.
That's one of the favorite countries that we have heard. Very good to visit for tourism as well as tax savings.
Yeah, true, definitely. And say you upload that on a Facebook, right? Today, the government is building that technology that your Facebook records are going to the tax department. And if your income is, say, disclosed at 2 lakh per annum, you're going to get a notice. Where did you get the money to fund your Mauritius trip?
Father-in-law funded.
Yeah, true. But expanding the tax base and various initiatives around that has definitely been a trend, right? Capturing some of the other key trends, right? And I think the good part about going last is most of it is covered, so I have to just touch on it little by little. Digital, again, I don't think digital has left any part of our lives untouched. Similarly for tax, right? There is, everything is about going digital, talking about getting audit done online, similarly talking tax to people online, filing their returns online has become the new normal. And digital is not just impacting how you interact, it's how you're processing the data, right? GST is something, I think we've all read about it enough, but what it has done in terms of transformation is it has made us highly technology dependent, because the volume of data and the robustness required to process that data and give accurate inputs is just massive. You have clients with, again, not billions and trillions, but I'll say lakhs and crores, our Indian terminology.
Indian terminology, yes.
Yeah. That many transactions per month, and it is not possible for someone to manually put that in an Excel and submit it to the government, right? So you have high dependency on how you're processing data for tax. Okay, a lot of the rules are now being fed into technology. So again, touching on Mr. Subaraidu's point, right? The data, even your tax data, is today susceptible to a lot of external threats, because you're using APIs, you're using RPAs to process that amount of data. So again, huge technology impact in tax. I think COVID brought about a sea of changes around the world. With India, I think the government has made conscious measures to not significantly increase the tax on the taxpayers. So if you see our overall COVID stimulus was at about 3% of the GDP. Whereas if you talk about countries like US, Japan, they are at 15%, right? And your stimulus really is how much the government is going to spend extra, I mean, collect extra from us and spend extra. So they're not going to collect extra from us through tax, right? That has been a significant movement in India, because of which you don't see the tax burden going up. But in other economies, you see a lot of tax burden going up. So a lot of legislative changes to keep in touch with them, and especially for MNCs that you're looking at, the impact of each of these changes in each of these jurisdictions in which they're present, right? Evaluating, keeping track of it, and eventually it's one tax head, right? One global tax head, and he's talking to 15 country heads, 30 country heads, trying to assimilate all that information without technology has become, is really a challenge.
Rohit, just I know you have this thought process which you're continuing, but I just want to like little bit pause here and ask you that you're talking about digital taxes, right? But my point is I've not been reading so much about the significant collection that the government made by this digital initiatives. You spoke about Facebook, for example. I upload that, okay, I've gone to an X country, and thereby I get a notification that, okay, where did you get money from? But tell me, do you have some numbers? And you're in the tax, so you maybe hear more insider information, but are you hearing that the tax crimes, though I don't know whether I'm coining a term, but is digital initiatives
You've just gone on mute, Asha, for the
Asha, you
last.
muted yourself.
Yeah.
yeah, okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, so yeah, this is another new era actually. Can you hear me? Right, so you're on mute, so we're just into this word. But so Rohit, that was my question. What is it you're hearing? What's a big picture of all of these digital initiatives?
So I think with all digital initiatives, you have to remember that it's capex, right? All your investments into digital are capex. What we are doing today is going to yield results 5 years from now. I remember attending a conference with the director of CPC. It's your centralized processing center, which is primarily processing your tax data. And this was about 4 to 5 years back. And he said, your returns in the next 3 years are going to come to you with all your data. You have to look at it, say yes or no, and submit it. And we are 3 years from there. And today we are getting pre-populated returns. Now, the fact that there are pre-populated returns, that means government has access to your bank data. They have access to who's deducted taxes on you, what kind of transactions you've done. And moreover, and most importantly, is these departments are talking to each other, which has never happened earlier in India, right? You have a MOU signed between the CBDT and the Ministry of Corporate Affairs that we're going to exchange data. You have all treaties being renegotiated just to enable ease of exchange of information across jurisdictions, right? I think it was Mukesh Ambani. I think at one point he mentioned, and he's made his money through oil. We all know that data is the new oil.
Yeah.
And what the government is doing is collecting so much data about you that when you go 5 years down the line, they will compute your tax liability and they will tell you approve or reject. And this is not a make-believe world, right? In India, it's a little difficult given our demography and the population spread, but the LATAM countries are doing this, right? There are countries where this is already implemented. And I'm saying that we all are going down that road, not today, maybe not in 2 years, not in 5 years, but when the students here are talking on these panels, definitely they'll be talking about more technology than we are.
Absolutely. No, absolutely, Rohit. I totally agree. Technologically, I think this generation will be way ahead, right? Um, but obvious, right? We don't have to say about it. So my son comes to me and tells me, can you order Maggie? That's the statement, right? So where we used to tell our parents, can you buy? So the language itself has become digital for the generations. So this is a great point, Rohit, you raised. And I think, we are just getting close to our panel. It's been already 1 hour that we are talking and taking rounds of it. And I'll maybe keep 1 or 2 questions and open up panel for more questions from the audience here. But I'll take point of Rohit now. So Rajesh Kumar sir, to your point, right, just to connect what Rohit said, you mentioned that even today, after learning taxes so much, we are not able to file our own income tax returns, right? Which is a fact, which is actually a fact, including me. I won't file my income tax return. Now I'll have to, this year I made a statement that I will do it by myself, whatever is the constraint, right? But sir, how do we then bridge these academic things? You made a very good statement actually to say that, how do we create good content, right? How do we make the education more industry oriented? So you mentioned about it, but my point is, what else do you think education system has to be introduced beyond the syllabus to bring this mindset of cultivating the education, right? Basically imparting this in the practical world. What do you think we need to do? Do we need to do more internship? Do we need to get, to Rohit's point, do we need to get industry people to show real examples, real life examples to students, make this more of a practical oriented education than having 3 years of a BCom and 2 years of a MCom, which is very black and white, right? So what do you think about it?
In fact, a very valid question. We say, I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand.
Yeah.
And what you rightly said, today that practical application is what is missing. Of course, there's always a doubt about the content, what we're learning, is it adequate and relevant? And considering, assuming that if it is relevant, what's the skill? How many of us students today are able to read balance sheet, elicit information, make decisions? In fact, I always say, if you don't know Excel, you're as good as illiterate, financially illiterate. And today, world has gone beyond Excel. Today, we're teaching Jamovi, a spreadsheet with R, etc., and whatnot. Point is, curriculum has been excellent, though there are always loopholes, etc.
Right.
Curriculum is good. The problem is with the delivery. And for delivery to be a problem, definitely there are many factors from all perspectives. And unfortunately today, it is more about getting qualification, exams. In fact, I also tell my CA students also, though it's a very wrong statement to make, before exams, they're focused on marks, after exams are on money, etc. But not all the times it is so truly. But that is actually what is in the mindset. And the system has created that if you pass, it's enough. If you qualify, it's enough, rather than knowing what is the skill required. And that's exactly the reason when they go for industry, they don't. In fact, today we don't even want industry to invite people. And I was attending the keynote session, I could keynote speaker, and there's a very beautiful question from one participant. If automation has to do everything, what is the role for us? And that's exactly the point. So how much can we go beyond automation to control the automation, I think, is the challenge the education has to make happen. Yes, good challenges. And I completely agree with what Subbaradu sir said. Today, if a person doesn't know what to do with data, I think they're redundant. And data management, data analytics is the key. And that is exactly what our students have to be equipped with. And should there be combi 3 years, etc. I think today education system should be flexible, which is exactly what NEP is providing for. Can come out of education after 1 year, 2 years, whatever. But as long as you have the essential skills required to make your own living or start your own venture, you're good enough. So what is essential for that is what should be equipped with. And unfortunately, it's not who will build the cat, which cat to build. Because so many things to be addressed and where to begin with is always been the challenge.
Right.
So, but engaging and involving is, I think, where it should begin. Everything
Absolutely,
should
sir. No, I totally agree. I mean, I just can't agree more to you. Actually, you're absolutely right. I think there's a larger role which a teaching community has to play in the whole of this regime. And when I mean teaching community, yesterday I was talking to Rohit, right? So I've been teaching for last like 15 years. I was telling him how I'm teaching is, I was telling him, like, if everybody who studies wants to, as you rightly said, sir, like everybody is behind marks and money, and then we run behind that money and we get into that corporate ladders, but we don't even come down and talk to students that how is the other side of the world, right? How is the corporate life is going to be? What are you expected to do? What are you not expected to do? So how do they even realize what the word is all about? So my endeavor always been to ensure that, we get a balance. That's why whenever we run this panels, right, I keep when we discuss about the panel discussion, I say always bring academics and industry together, right? Have this combination together, because these cannot be separated. And always bring more and more industry people to talk to students, right, about what's happening, right? What is expected out of them, what kind of value system that they have to carry, right? And that gives them more perspectives about reading, right? So in fact, I was just reading somewhere that in the whole running of lifestyle management, we're forgetting about how to manage life.
Yes.
Right? We just want to manage lifestyle, but we're just forgetting how to manage life, right? So that is exactly what we all have to do. And as a community, I think in India, if 130 crores population, if we have to excel, contribution has to come from larger community, right? So which is what I agree to you, sir. I think each one of us are responsible. Now I'll just switch to Subaraidu, sir, 1 minute here, and take a little bit of deviation of data we spoke about. So this is one question. Okay, when I was a child, crime for me was only killing somebody, right? Stealing things. So that was called as crime, right? We always said, okay, there's a criminal law in India. But as we grew up, then we got this word called cyber crime. Like, okay, we were thinking about what is cyber crime, etc. Now, as we grow up, we are getting word called fin crime, right? And it's like, okay, how is this thing is getting evolved? And I realize a fin crime is a lot to do with data, right? It's just a lot to do with data. Now, what do you think, sir, organizations have to do to protect their data? You spoke about it. I mean, billions and billions of the fines that organizations has been imposed, but what do they really need to do to protect their data? And how do they get this education to everybody below the level? So I'll give you one example. Recently, one of the staff member, very junior member of our team, was asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement. And this person, this was just like, maybe just out of chartered accountant with like, articleship experience and 1-2 years of experience, went ahead and signed a non-disclosure agreement. So my question to him was, how did you sign an NDA on behalf of a firm? Right? You can put the entire firm under liability, right? You've signed something which has a lot of paragraphs that says this cannot be shared, this cannot be shared, you cannot take this name. And immediate next minute, I spoke to him, which NDA you signed. He spoke about everything about the client. He said, this is a client, this is a work, okay, this is what we're doing. And then I see next day in the Facebook, he's excited, I'm excited to do the work for this client. Okay. And now this is a problem, right? You have signed an NDA, which is a confidentiality agreement, but you don't really realize the importance of that. So how does this culture can be cultivated, and what an organization should do?
Well, honestly, this itself, what you asked, is a matter of a huge debate and discussion within industry circles as well. While everybody agrees that the human angle to data losses and cyber crimes is perhaps one of the biggest and perhaps the most trickiest and the most difficult ones to get over, right? In the sense that somebody looking to hack your organization can send about 1,000 mails, right? But he has to succeed only once. Okay, in order that he penetrate your network and then move laterally inside the network, gain access privileges and all. He has to succeed once. Whereas from the point of view of your internal IT guy, he must succeed 100% of the times in order to prevent hacks from happening.
Yeah.
Correct. So this is a bit like the terrorists versus the army people that goes on in Kashmir and all that part. Right? The terrorists got to succeed once. The army guys got to succeed 100% of the times. Correct. So what is now happening is actually it is focusing on. I'm reading a very interesting book right now, which is about how to educate your board about cybersecurity.
Okay.
They draw this interesting parallel. Okay. And interestingly, what that book says is that this entire thing about cybersecurity being a human thing and a training thing and all is actually nothing but a myth. It's not true. But what the logic that he provides is brilliant, actually. He draws a comparison between the automobile industry and let's say this data and cybersecurity and all the trends and all, right? Today, what happens is if you sit in a car, right? If you are crossing a school zone, right? You find speed breakers on the road, right? You find crash barriers on the roads, on the highways, right? You find seat belts, right? You find all kinds of safety gadgets that are there inside the car, which prevent accidents from happening. The point is the digitalization has happened so fast that the protection technologies and the protection practices have not kept pace. They're actually following suit. Correct. So so while on the one hand, we cannot take our eyes off the ball as far as training is concerned, and try to kind of come out with newer technologies. For example, there are a lot of tools which kind of, everybody goes, you make 100 people sit in a training session and tell them again and again, there's a phishing mail, there's a spear phishing mail, don't click on this and all. But I'm 100% sure people go back to their desks, okay? And the next thing what happens is at least 2 of them or 3 of them will click on that mail. Right,
absolutely. The more you prompt them, it's like a attitude in my human mind, right?
Absolutely.
If something cannot
Absolutely.
be seen, I'll have to figure out curiosity. Yeah.
So it's actually a human thing, because what they say is people really want to go about doing their jobs and completing their jobs efficiently, effectively. Their number one priority is not cybersecurity. So as long as policies, practices, technologies, and everything are built around with that premise in mind, perhaps that is the way forward for the industry to kind of minimize these instances.
Agreed, sir. No, totally agree with you. I think it's an organization culture that really matters a lot, right? So what I've seen also is, a little extent, I agree there's a lot of parameters, but I also believe, to your point, Subraidu sir, that you're reading a book on how to train a board. Now I can relate. What I've seen is there are many cases when we talk to a larger CFOs and CEOs, with exception, not generalizing it, they preach, right? They preach data is this, data is that, but in front of us, they can just call anybody and talk about sensible information. Now that is where the lead by example comes into picture, right? Is the board showing that attitude, awareness, and action about being so serious about data, right? And that message.
In fact, COSO framework in Sarbanes-Oxley had this phrase about tone at the top.
Tone at the top, exactly.
It's a small phrase, but it's such a powerful phrase that it kind of, as they say, culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? Culture eats everything for breakfast.
Everything
and
for
dinner,
breakfast. Totally agree with you, sir. I think that is a wonderful statement. I was reading on transformative leadership. I don't want to deviate the topic, but you're right. When we learn about transformative leadership as a topic, that's exactly what it says. Culture eats breakfast, right? All the time for us. I mean, the strategy is all about the culture, right? So it's very well made statement. Now the point here, Subraidu sir and Rajesh Kumar sir, all of you are talking about a lot which is changing in data, digitization, etc. Right? So my one question to Pratik, to you, the question is: see, as accountants, right? Don't you think so? We have to like analyze so many different transactions. I remember at some point of time, the client used to come and tell me that I have a copyright. Where should I show it? I used to tell them intangible asset, right? After some point of time, they said I have a software. Where should I show it? Intangible asset. I have a software which is SaaS. Where do I show it? Right? It is software as a service. Then I said it's a prepaid asset, right? So now, how is that intangible asset over the period of time became a prepaid asset? Now the client comes and says, I've got a wallet balance. How do I disclose it, right? Now another thing, I've got Bitcoins, crypto, what is it to me, right? What is cryptocurrency in the balance sheet itself is a big point of a debate, right? In India, we still are debating about crypto, but if I have a cryptocurrency, and I realized, I think a couple of months ago, that Bitcoin is actually one part of crypto, right? We're talking about so many cryptocurrencies which is getting evolved. If I'm buying an asset using crypto, is it barter, right? Because crypto still has not got a status of currency yet, right? So then am I analyzing this as a barter transaction? I'm just throwing everything which is in mind to you, that these are evolving, complicated accounting transactions on account of digitization. How do you think the students will be able to get up to this with the debit and credit that we learn?
So I think first thing is we ourselves need to have a view. Look, at the end of the day, accounting is a social science. It's not an exact science. There are people who tell it is as good as currency. Why not treat it as currency? But then when you look at fundamentally what currency is, it's actually a store of value. It's a measure of value, which crypto is not, given that there is so much fluctuation of volatility due to the demand and supply. Then the question is it a financial asset or is it a derivative? I think from the point of view of the student, what the student really needs to understand, it is what is the instrument in the first place. As a student, and maybe as a student, when I'm thinking it's a graduation student, it's probably someone who is currently pursuing graduation. At that level, you really need to only teach them or make them know what the basics are. Tell them the basics,
right? Absolutely.
That's right. Tell them the concepts about assets, tell them the concepts about cash, tell them the concepts about crypto.
Why is Bitcoin
at some
not a
stage,
cash?
I think let's leave the rule making aside.
Right.
But if they understand the concept, they'll be able to appreciate it and apply it better.
Absolutely. That was a very good statement you made. I think we should, when we start teaching, we should keep rules aside, right? It is gone are the days where you used to say US GAAP is a rule book, right? We said always it's a rule book, it's a cookbook, it tells you what needs to be done. Over the period of time, the way US GAAP is aligning themselves to the changing accounting dynamics, it's no more a cookbook. Right, any new standard of a new US GAAP which has come up, whether it is leases or revenue, are in line with the acceptable practices of the world. It's very judgmental, right? They're taking away those bright lines. So to your point, and I think the message that we have for all the teachers who are listening this and everybody who is into the community is that there's a lot that we need to do from a conceptual education, right? Like imparting the conceptual education, imparting that why attitude, questionable attitude, right? Why this can be, and a curiosity to learn, right? One cannot teach everything, but are you creating that curiosity to analyze things better, right? That's, I think, a most valid point you made. And I have a last question for the panel, and then we'll take more questions from audience. And Rohit, the question is to you, and that's my last question. Nothing out of the questions I sent yesterday, okay, FYI. So it just came to my mind now. Rohit, tell me one thing. When will the taxation starts accounting base for the purpose of taxes, right? We talk so much, you and Pratik for me on the screen are next to each other, okay? But I know tax and accounting is never next to each other, right? I take an accounting base, do those thousands of analysis, adjustments, deductible, non-deductible, arrive a tax base, and then throw it to accountant that you do deferred tax computations, right? I feel it is good. It's good. It's creating a lot of employment and a lot of conceptual understanding. I'm not denying to it, but when is a day when we simplify this and take an accounting base as a tax base? Because we're changing, right? The world is changing so much that why do we need to take 6 months to come up with taxes, right? I mean, you get my point, right? Computation of tax takes so much time. So how do you think this will be done? It's just a question in your mind that will that day ever comes? You're on mute.
Yeah, thanks about that. So I think the short answer to your question and a demotivating one is that day is not going to come, right?
Okay, so we take it as a motivation. So anything which doesn't happen, we should be motivated. So
yeah, but there is a lot of silver lining around this, which I want to highlight, right? The way tax functions have traditionally worked, right? And you're aware of this, is it is at the back end. The accounting is happening, the transactions have happened, everything is done and dusted, and then the tax professional comes in and tries to compute your liability and gives it to the government, right? What is changing is today that tax professional is now a part of the data trail, and that is how you will see this impact coming in. So you will never have a tax law which aligns completely with your accounting law, right? But you will have a tax law, a tax team, which will work side by side with your accounting team. So if I'm to elaborate that a little earlier, again, you would have your tax team working and telling the accounting team, this is what the amounts are, this is what you need to do. Today, the tax team is sitting along with the accounting team on the side and saying, while you account this, make sure this transaction happens, because the tax team is getting that real-time data. So that change is definitely started, and
saying
that
the
will
timing
continue.
will reduce, basically the timing that is taking to bridge this gap of accounting and taxation would eventually come down.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, that's the silver lining.
While I'm not a
Yes, sir.
tax expert, Asha, let me attempt to give another kind of an answer to your question to Rohit. As long as countries continue to run deficits, right?
Right.
And they have the requirement to fill those deficit taxes, I don't see taxes and accounting ever aligning. Because
Ever
at the end of the
aligning.
day, tax is also a fiscal policy tool, right? It has got certain other goals as well. So as long as tax is an instrument of that tool, those intentions and those requirements, I think, will continue to govern taxation.
Absolutely, sir. No, I agree. This was, as a student, always fascinated me that I take accounting base, derive a tax base, and when do I just get this together? And I get that it's definitely not going to happen. But maybe we as country can reduce the timeline of the post-mortem which is happening, right? Like 6 months is too much to actually close the books of accounts. A lot has changed in 6 months. So I think this was very interesting. And very thought-provoking. I didn't even realize how we clocked 1.5 hours already. I hope we're all talking and we're enjoying, but I'm hoping that even the audience are having a good time. Can we have some questions or any thoughts around, what's the topics around panel. I think we'll just open it for Q&A. Any specific questions that anyone wants to ask? I cannot see more hands though, but yeah, we keep it virtual. I'm just hoping, sir, everybody listen to us, right? Any thoughts from any of you, any questions that you want to ask, more from the academic side or anything which you think should be covered by the panelists?
So Asha, I think one thing I would like to share,
Yes,
right?
Rohit.
And we touched about this a while back, where Dr. Rajesh was talking about what do we do as teachers, as academicians,
right?
And what do the students need to do to really get up to the industrial world? Uh, there's one number which has never left my mind, and I read this back in 2020. There was a report on how the tax profession is changing, right? And this was a report asked, and it's from the horse's mouth. It's a team went to the CFOs and the bigger tax head and asked them, what is changing, right? And what do you expect from the people who are coming in? And again, I'm going to specify on this percentage, a whopping 96%. Yeah, 96% of them told that for tax, the skills are moving from pure tax play to tax, technology, data, and process.
Absolutely.
Right. So someone who's looking to be a tax practitioner, if you are looking at a pure play tax knowledge, right, I think you need to expand your horizon. Look at, because the future is that your mundane routine activities of compliances are going to be by technology, right?
Yeah.
A human will come in to apply their mind. So start thinking on how to build processes and how to apply your mind to concepts.
Exactly, Rohit. See, we as professionals, right? I mean, we all agree that over the period of time, we got so fascinated about this PPTs, right? So for me, the new PPT is people, process, and technology, right? It's not about the PPTs that we showcase because that will be done by robots. Like all of that we are now showcasing is from either Google or from the books or from the search engines or from what we have read through, right? But what is, I think, futuristic is how do we now able to bridge this and connect to people, process, and technology, which are the design principles of any of the organization, any solution for that matter. Rohit, to your point, even if somebody has to specialize in accounting as a domain, I do not see, Pratik, you will agree with me, right? We don't see that accountants can be accountants without knowing data, technology, and process.
Sorry to interrupt, Asha ma'am. There are few questions in the chat box.
Sure, ma'am. I was just reading one question that, yes, you're right. They're good questions. So is there any solution of how to account for expenses like advertising, which are actually investments? And how to maybe Pratik, it's you accountant, how to capitalize and other intangibles accounting. I think it's more about investments accounting and intangibles accounting.
I think, to be honest, the accounting answer is, and I know the accounting answer could be different from an economic answer, because when you incur a heavy expenditure on advertising, you're really expecting to create an impact in the mind of the person receiving the advertisement. And that's why it makes you to believe that it is actually an asset for you. I place an ad today, people will see that ad, remember that ad 6 months later, a year later.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, accounting principles purely focus or look at asset as something that you control. Now, you cannot control how the recipient of the advertisement perceives or looks at an advertisement, whether he remembers it or not. And therefore, in a lot of these cases, you will end up as an expenditure when you're looking at advertisement. So it's a little tricky. While the intention is to create long-lasting benefits, and maybe it does create long-lasting benefits, but again, as I said, the objective of financial reporting is very different. It's to reflect the transactions in the books. It's not to reflect entirely the economics. There are a set of rules that we need to go by, and that's why we probably end up with that as still an expenditure.
No, totally agreed, Pratik. I think that's a very valid point you raised. Gone are the days where we used to take advertisement expenditure as a deferred expenditure and defer it over 3 years or 2 years. To your point, I think the impact of an advertisement is not even there for 5 minutes, right? We just forget there's so many products, and apparently I was reading that the customer is a king is truly been applied in this generation, right? They switch so quickly to any product and anywhere, and you cannot crib about it, right? Customer is a king all the time. You have to run a business which is customer centric, and I think advertisement can only do a little bit of awareness of late, right?
And
It's
I think
not creating the brand equity actually.
the other thing, Asha, and everyone here, is that advertisement is also not something we should look at very restrictively or narrowly to say it's an ad that I've placed. Today there's a big $1 billion sale that happens. Now a lot of those discounts could also be in the nature of a promotional advertisement, and that's another big issue that we're all grappling with, whether it's capex, whether it is opex.
Yeah.
Again, and the answer could be different in tax, and it could be different in accounting. So
Subarayudu sir will say it is about data now. All the advertising data, if you really dig and see and compare it in terms of how much benefit it directly yielded. I was speaking to some of the CFOs, and the CFOs clearly tells me, why do we even advertise? Like Excite Life CFO was telling me, okay, we bring Dhoni, MS Dhoni, and advertise, but how does it impact? Like I am not able to relate that how much on account of paying 3 crores, 4 crores, etc. to MS Dhoni got additional policies to me. Right? Can you prove this to me? That just because I got MS Dhoni on the picture, did I then have a 10% shoot in my premium sales? Right? I mean, did people actually subscribe more? That relationship is not happening. But Subarayudu said it's a very interesting thought. Are you reading anything about creating those direct linkages between this heavy advertising expenditure versus the benefit the company is deriving?
Okay, I've been reading about this ever since I was an MBA student in way back in 1992, and unfortunately, the answer always is like our COVID vaccine responses when somebody says that okay, no conclusive evidence as yet has been found to establish a link between these two, and that is a static answer. That is something that has not changed, but. Right. Yes, definitely the tools and techniques which would enable us to kind of identify and isolate and build such relationship. Definitely in those tools and techniques, vast improvements have actually happened. But yeah, the only problem is that, isolating, coming to an example, I mean, the timing when that ad campaign ran, what were the other ad campaign that ran at that point in time? There's so many variables there, right?
Yeah,
So
different dimensions of verifying the data to see that whether there was at least some kind of a intangible benefit that came through. Yeah.
Yes, but at least the techniques of establishing cause and effect, right? Definitely have improved, and what definitely I learned in my IIM Lucknow data analytics course definitely tells me that you can at least it is possible for a team of analysts to gather relevant data and at least try and put some kind of a simple regression model and say that, okay, this is what happened, right? So when we ran this ad campaign, and so teams can look at tremendous amounts of data, crunch tremendous amounts of data, and try and show some cause and effect impacts, right? And build some basic models which say that as a result of our running this ad campaign, X, Y, Z, these things happened, and this is the correlation
between the data and this. Yeah, agreed, sir.
Now, whether those things in turn will further go ahead and increase revenue is additional,
That's I think to answer the simple question is advertising cannot be considered to be an investment easily. It needs a lot of analysis, but it throws up a lot of questions around the proprietary aspects of whether so much is required to be spent, right? From a cost optimization perspective, to Rohit's point that as like this is accountant's mind now, like then I'm not thinking about accounting, I'm also thinking about, is it needed? Right? Is this required? Right? How technology can work? How does this can be inbuilt in the process? Right? So we have some more questions, but I know we are running out of time and we're 12:30 sharp already. But Rajesh Kumar sir, one point, when we learned about this time value of money, right? This came to my mind now. So we always have 1 year for the discounting factor, right? Now, don't you think so? the unicorns are becoming unicorns in 1 year. So I was just thinking that why should we now take a discounting factor for 1 year? Even if it's 3 months, isn't it we need to discount? My thought, right? Because in 3 months, a lot is changing. A time value of money is substantially changing in less than 1 year.
Absolutely. And that's exactly where I said the gap is. Traditionally, we think discounting is only for 1 year, yearly
1
basis,
year.
actually.
Yeah.
Not necessary. In fact, on a daily basis, we can discount. The point is, unless we encounter that situation, we don't think upon this. But for sure, it's beyond that. And it's, I mean, if you look at all the practical instances, you get to see, even for a shorter period, we do discounting and make decisions, actually. So what I think is in the right direction. Just to answer one this thing, Asha, there is one question, one Pratik has asked from academic perspective, and he says it's a completely academic oriented, and he wanted two things. One, government wants us to have PhD, so doing professional courses, would it be any good? 2 points on this, Mr. Pratik. One, all these are different paths for us to get equipped with knowledge and skill. And I'm sure we might have seen last week, government UGC has announced that even professional courses are now considered on par with post-graduation and are now eligible to go further into PhD. So is it doing this or that is not the point. And I really appreciate Subbaradu sir in this regard. Constantly keep, acquiring qualifications. Of course, it's more than qualifications, about the knowledge. So it's not about which course you do, but if you want to be in academics, as PhD has its own significance. So doing that definitely is a good choice. But please also pursue, if you're interested, all these professional courses, definitely to add value, because that is what you need for your second question, how to bridge the gap. And imparting academics should be skill oriented, should be. Though on paper we always say there is skill included, it's not so. So if you can make it happen, and all these professional courses, that is exactly the advantage. It will equip you, it will train you for what you can take to classroom to make this happen. And that's exactly where all these professionals, I really appreciate it. Even a few minutes when they spend, the kind of exposure that we get, the kind of knowledge what we get, it's purely because of the exposure they have, and which is what they're passing on to. So definitely that definitely can help you to bridge the gap what you feel is missing as such.
Absolutely, sir. What my view here is that academic, has to go to industry and start, getting themselves practically trained.
Yes.
Industry people have to come back to academics and getting themselves learned also. Like, Rohit and Pratik will and will agree more to me. Subbaradu said, you are free, you're reading a lot, but I'm sure Rohit will agree that the kind of work culture that we run, we work for 14 hours a day. Where is the time to actually read newer things, right? We're reading in the process. What we are reading is very relevant to our knowledge, like our business. But if I really want to read psychology like Rohit did, right? Do I really get time to really read about it? And that is where I feel a right strike has to be made, even in the academics to practical versus practical to academics. I always challenge organizations that why don't you ensure that out of your 9 hours of a working, take out 2 hours for actual learning for people, right? I mean, tell them that this 2 hours you have to do this courses, learn this. But in the, that's like a thought I have, that you really need to bridge both the sides. Like, people have to keep learning. Learning has to be adopted to industry. It's a cycle. So I think it was very interesting panel. We have more and more questions coming through, but I apologize. I don't know we have time. Shilpa ma'am, I think I'll hand it over to you. And it's really privileged to have all of you in this panel. Subbaradu sir, Rajesh Kumar sir, Rohit, Pratik, thank you so much for making time. And it was very enlightening. I didn't even realize how this time flied, and a lot that I've learned today. And I'm hoping the same with everyone. Thank you so much for taking time.
Thank you
Your
so much.
insights were excellent, Asha, and your moderation was so good. In fact, you made us feel that actually there's a lot more time available, but excellent moderation. Thank you. Thanks for all your insights as well.
Thank you so much, Ms. Asha, for being an articulate moderator as always. And we are truly privileged to all the panelists, Dr. Rajesh Kumar, Mr. Subbaradu, Mr. Pratik, and Mr. Rohit Nahar, for a wonderful interactive panel discussion. Thank you all once again. Dear participants, the feedback link for the session is posted in the chat box. Kindly fill in the same. Participants, note, I request all the research paper presenters to log in by 12:50 p.m. for the technical sessions and be ready with the PowerPoint presentations. I request all the research paper presenters to log in to the Zoom meeting links for the respective tracks allotted. I also request all the delegates to log in by 4 p.m. for the valedictory session. Now, I request the participants to turn on their videos so that we can take a group photograph. Thank you all. Now we break for the lunch. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.